son of Vaughn and Sondy Pugh. Bailey Reynolds, daughter of Kurt Reynolds and Brandy Sandy. Josh Savage, son of Pat and Tammy Savage. Jacob Shank, son of Ed and Carrie Shank. Kelsey Smithy, daughter of Melissa Tackman. Caroline Sweeney, daughter of Rob and Diane Sweeney. Isaac Tharp, son of Brian and Kirsten Tharp. Amanda Thurston, daughter of Bill and Mary Thurston. James Toreen, son of Marvin Toreen Jr. and Kate Toreen. Megan Van Altree, daughter of Tim Van Altree and Christina Brown. Hope Wagoner, daughter of Stacy and Jeff Wagoner. Annalise Wetstein, daughter of Shannon and Jeremy Ganzavort, and Brian Wetstein and Neil Larimore. Sam Weesey, son of Jennifer Beal and Tim Weesey. And Delana Wonder, daughter of Chuck and Kathleen Wonder. Ladies and gentlemen, here are the senior members of your 2021 Marching Panthers and their parents. They will be a part of the Marching Panthers performance here at halftime tonight, and they will be hosting the 2021 Panther Marching Invitational tomorrow afternoon and evening. Thank you once again to your senior members of the Marching Panthers and their parents. And again, we'd like to welcome you to the 2021 WCHS football program honoring our Heroes Night. Tonight, between the freshman and varsity games, we will be recognizing and honoring many of our current and past armed service and first responders. We appreciate all the work done and sacrifices made by these heroes to keep us safe and free every day. If you currently serve or have served in the armed forces or as a first responder, please gather at this time in the south end zone under the small scoreboard. There will be people there to direct you accordingly. We will be recognizing and honoring these heroes on the field during tonight's coin flip and the singing of our national anthem. At this time, we would like to honor some of our current players' family members. Terry McCarthy, grandfather of Connor Rose. Terry is a former Army serviceman during the Vietnam War and a former Chicago police officer. Bill Blackburn, grandfather of Billy Morrison. Bill is a former Army serviceman serving in the 101st Airborne during the Vietnam War. Justin Casey, father of Tyler Casey. Justin is a current member of the Washington Police Department. Also here tonight for Tyler is Ken Shoemaker, a current firefighter. Troy Skaggs, father of Brock Skaggs. Troy is a current member of the Peoria Police Department. His uncle Brian Skaggs is here and is also a current member of the Peoria Police Department. Also attending are family friends Brian Despinez, a former United States Marine and former East Peoria policeman, and Melissa Despinez, former Air Force and current OSF nurse. We would also like to honor a current member of the Limestone football team who went to boot camp this past summer and is playing on the team tonight. He is in the National Guard, and he is number 18, Bryson Williams.
Some people like to stay out late. Some folks can't hold out that long. Nobody wants to go home now. There's too much going on. This night is gonna last forever. And that's gonna last all summer long. Sometime before the sun comes up, the radio is gonna play that song. It's gonna be a heartache night, a heartache night, I know. It's gonna be a heartache night, a heartache night, I know. Oh, I know. It's gonna be a heartache night. The moon's shining bright, so turn up the light. We'll get it right. It's gonna be a heartache night, a heartache night, I know.
Proud of the Panthers.
Sarah, give me a thing.
Here in Washington, this is game time. It's a powerful combination. The Washington Panthers and Game Time.
Listen careful, listen careful, listen careful.
My beat bang, my beat bang, my beat bang, my beat bang, bang, my beat bang, my beat bang, my beat bang, 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 bang,
Hit the record button.
yo, bang, 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 my beat bang, it go hard, slap it in your truck, holy sounds in your car, swag turns up, the same way it's got, Christ music turns you right like knives, my beat bang, it's something like a hammer, and no it's not secular, that beat is just bananas, no focus on the figures, you gotta hear the message, the good news of the gospel, let's say it's my beat bang, call it thunderbolt, look at the bass and it's filled with the Holy Ghost, who said we couldn't turn our 808s up, slapping real loud in your city and it's crazy, my beat bang, you think it's a secret, it came from the G inside of me, best believe me, cause he created it, make the clap and make the kick, so I gotta tell the whole world and your mama that. My beat bang, 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 my beat 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 bang, ain't y'all good? Go check it, grand, so it sounds that's good. The message is the same, but the method is another. I'm tired of people putting this music in the music box. Well, wind me up and I'ma pop out. How to put this piece back in the box.
At this time, we'd like to invite, again, all former or current servicemen and women and first responders to make your way down to the area in front of the Pantherplex, and you can enter onto the track area through the gate down in front of the Pantherplex. Thank you.
It's like what's my feeling, brand new feeling. Rock to the music, side of the music. My heart beat a acoustic, moves like a race. Walk to a fire, then a flame, make it sick. Go hard in my lane, both tracks in the cassette. To me and in the brain, gotta roll with the vision. Vision of a good time, all I wanna know when the party gon' fly, let the good time roll. Come on, let's go. I don't know if you the body on the road. Ain't nothing like a feeling when you're winning your soul. The wheel keep spinning, only got one goal. Stop, stop the go, stop the go. The world ain't ready, cause I rock the low. So act like you know, act like you know, act like you know. Just rock the room when the good time roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we ask that everyone take their seats as we begin our ceremony to honor our heroes. Being escorted onto the field at this time are our current and past armed services and first responders. We thank them for all that they do to keep our towns and our country safe and free. We ask that if we have anyone in the stands who has also served in the armed forces or as a first responder, that they stand at this time and be recognized as well. Let's give all of these honorees a big round of applause. At this time, we'd like to bring your attention to the center of the field where we will have our coin flip. Joining our captains today are special honorees. Dale Martin, great-grandfather of Panther football player Evan Grazier. Dale served in the U.S. Navy during World War II. He was stationed out of Panama. Also joining us is Lester Roth, who is a lifelong resident of Washington. Les served in the United States Marines during World War II and is an Iwo Jima survivor. In addition, we have Tim Moore. Tim is a Richwoods graduate who served in the U.S. Army Airborne. Tim served with the Bandito Charlie Company. He served as a sergeant from 1967 through 1970. During his time, he was awarded many honors, including the Bronze Star, Vietnam Cross of Gallantry with Palm, and the Vietnam Service Medal. Tim is currently a volunteer for the Greater Peoria Honor Flight. Thank you all for your military service. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we ask that we observe a moment of silence for all of those brave men and women who fought for and served this country and died in the line of duty. Thank you. And at this time, we'd like to direct your attention to the track area on the home side of the field where our WCHS choir will sing our national anthem. Thank you, WCHS choir, for the singing of our national anthem.
And we are coming to you live on a Friday night in Washington, Illinois at Babcock Stadium for tonight's Middle Illini showdown between the Limestone Rockets and your Washington Panthers. I'm joined in the booth today by three-year quarterback at Dunlap, varsity basketball assistant, PE coach, and now football color extraordinaire, Blake Bauer. Coach Bauer, we have a game tonight pitting two teams coming off losses from week number 2. The Panthers lost 28-14 to Kankakee, and of course Mount Zion took a victory up against Limestone. Talk a little bit about, Coach, first and foremost, about the Limestone Rockets visiting tonight at 0-2.
Yeah, Limestone coming in as 0-2. They've got two players, I think, tonight you got to keep your eye on. The first one's number 88, Frank Driscoll. He is kind of the heart and soul of their team. He's their leader, and he makes big plays. He's tough. He just embodies everything you want out of a player.
We know the name Driscoll quite well. Head coach Darren Driscoll has been at Limestone since 2012. Of course, Frank Driscoll is his son. The number 88, a middle linebacker and running back, has been described as a Swiss Army knife by the Washington coaching staff. And interestingly enough, Dr. Driscoll, that is the wife of Coach Driscoll and the mom, of course, of Frank, she describes him as a potato. Coach, for the viewers out there, talk to me a little bit about what it means to be a Swiss Army knife and a potato all in one sentence.
So he can do it all, right? He can lead, he can catch it, he can run it, he could probably throw it, which he hasn't done this year, but I bet he can. He plays defense, he can play defensive line, he can make plays in space. He's kind of the guy that whatever you do with him, wherever you put him, he's going to make a play.
The Panthers are coming off that loss against Kankakee, arguably one of the better football teams we have seen here at Babcock Stadium. Talked about in the Peoria Journal-Star how fast they were, how athletic they were. But sitting up here in this booth as a play-by-play and you, the color man, we were very impressed by their discipline and their physicality. What does Limestone bring to the table today that they might have learned from that Kankakee game film?
Well, I think when you watch the Kankakee game, like you said, one thing they did was discipline, and one thing that Kankakee did was create turnovers. If Limestone can come in tonight and create some turnovers and force Washington in some third and longs and keep them on their side of the field, okay, Limestone's going to give themselves a good chance.
You talk a little bit about third down. Against Mount Zion, Limestone did struggle on third down conversions. In fact, they even went for a fourth down conversion 3 times, converting one of them. Last week against Kankakee, the Panthers ran into an absolute juggernaut out there on the field.
Yep.
Kankakee rushed the ball 45 times. They were able to pass the ball against the Panthers, and they also were able to possess the football. Tonight, Limestone lining up defensively against the Panthers. Number 1, Isaac Mapson was brought up by Coach Driscoll. Talk about how they might try to defend Isaac Mapson tonight.
Well, I think what you're going to see from Limestone is a 3-3 defense. So they're going to have a nose guard, okay, and then they're going to have what they call 2 defensive ends. There's something about the word defensive tackle maybe that's not so, I guess you call it luxurious, or, you know, it's not real. The defensive tackle is kind of the term that you don't want to be. You want to be that defensive end in their scheme.
Coach, if you got me on the field as a starter, you can call me defensive whatever you
Whatever,
wanted to.
as long
I'd
as
be
you're
out
on the
there
field, right?
The field. That's
Yep.
exactly right. Defensive left out would be a bad position.
So with that, then when they've got 3 when they got 3 linemen and then they've got 3 backers, that allows them to do different things in coverage with Mapson and Lewis. So on one side, Coach, they could play man, and on the other side, they could play zone. And they could do a lot of things to switch that up throughout the night to try to confuse Noah Burlett and try to confuse Mapson and Lewis.
We attended the practice on Labor Day. We attended that practice and watched Washington go through their reps, go through their scouts. Coach Crouch is not predictable. Coach Crouch is a man that, though, is very, very passionate about a certain brand of football. And that brand of football sometimes is we're going to line up, hat on hat, helmet on helmet, and we're going to run that ball.
Yep.
Would you be surprised tonight if Washington doesn't air it out and says, we're going to run between the tackles and we're going to figure out a way to dominate this game?
Would I be surprised? No. If you look at the stats, first week against Highland, Thomas Borges had 20 carries for 123 yards. He averaged 6.2 yards a carry. Last week against Kankakee, he had 13 carries for 45 yards. He averaged 3.5 yards a carry. If Washington is able to average 6 to 7 yards a carry tonight, okay, they're going to set themselves up for a good position to win.
Coach Driscoll, a graduate of Mesa High School, then he went to Scottsdale Junior College and went to Bethel College, which is in Newton, Kansas. Coach Driscoll takes great pride in defense, and he talked at length about the strength of his football team being the defensive line and the linebacking core. He talked a lot about guys such as Ty Fate, number 78, Aiden Trueblood, number 70, and Isaac Anderson. These are Ironman football players. For the viewers at home, explain to them what an Ironman football player is, because Limestone's got 3 of them on the D-line.
So these are guys that'll play both ways. And nowadays, it's different to see guys playing both ways. You got a lot of specialists on the field, whether you're a wide receiver, whether you're a quarterback, running back, or your only defense, okay? These are guys that play both ways, and especially number 64, he can play center and guard, so you're going to see him in both of those spots tonight.
Isaac Anderson is a 3.8 GPA. He can handle that kind of workload and the intellectual load that's probably going to be required to be able to do that. Number 88, Frank Driscoll. He is that man that we talked about earlier. Crazy things about young men and young women in high school athletics today. Sometimes we talk about their accolades nonstop. We talk about how many catches they have, how many rushes they have. What can't be lost is these are student athletes. Frank is a 4.0 GPA at Limestone, an avid reader that loves sci-fi, wants to be a librarian someday, a library science guy. We can't ever emphasize enough that these young men here tonight on a Friday night are students first, athletes second. And Coach Driscoll, talking about his son, talked about values. Coach, you're a father, I'm a father, talked about things like work ethic and discipline and competitive nature. What are we going to see out of Frank Driscoll on the field tonight? Because he has some youth out there with him, a sophomore quarterback, another sophomore quarterback. We'll probably see both of them. What's he going to do on the field to try to help out some of these inexperienced Rockets?
He's going to do his part. He's going to talk to him. He's going to do his best to be a leader as far as putting them in positions to win. So that means if somebody's confused out there, he can take over. He can get them in the right spot. He can get them in the right set. Whatever position, whatever play they need to be in, he can make those things happen.
While we're sitting up here discussing a little pregame, this is the 224-member band, along with the color guard that has taken the field. They are about ready to play Loyalty, which is Washington's fight song. This band is a sheer joy to absolutely listen to. So enjoy that in the background. We are going to continue to go over the pregame. I referenced earlier the sophomore quarterback, number 16, Caleb Bieneman. This is his 3rd varsity start. He is also joined by fellow quarterback Kenyon Johnson. You can almost predict a 2-headed monster here for the next 2.5 years at Limestone. Caleb Bieneman was 9 for 18 for 82 yards, a touchdown and an interception. Todd Stevens likes to play against inexperienced quarterbacks. What will defensive coordinator Todd Stevens dial up against Caleb?
I think you're going to see a lot of pressure packages brought in tonight. You're going to see a lot of blitzing linebackers. You may even see some corner blitzes if they can get themselves in the right coverages, which could be, a safety help over the top. The corner blitz is in, and they've got that covered. You're going to see a lot of different moving pieces, I think, from Washington to try to confuse the young quarterback.
Bieneman is going to be most likely looking for number 11. That's Sam Morse, a dynamic wide receiver that had 6 catches and 60 yards. He is indeed fast. A 4x100 anchor in 7th in state last year in the COVID year. He's vertical, and he's a possession wide receiver. I think he needs to go play for the Chicago Bears ASAP on Sunday. Coach, Sam Morse most likely is going to line up against what DB for Washington?
Well, I would say they'll put Drew Lewis on him. With the speed and Drew's physicalness, I think that they will try to maybe jam him at the line of scrimmage and not let him get into his route. The thing about Morse, though, is like you said, he's vertical, okay, but he's detailed. He runs that. So expect some comeback routes early to try to get Lewis to bite or who's ever on him, and then as soon as they maybe bite on one, you could see the vertical threat go deep.
The running game for Limestone's going to feature the man that we've already talked about, number 88, Frank Driscoll. We'll see him at tight end. We'll see him occasionally at fullback. We'll see him at halfback. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him as a place kicker, a punter, and anything else out there on the field. And a kind of an interesting tidbit from practice, offensive coordinator Lauren Peacock, who will talk a lot throughout this entire broadcast, was absent at a practice, and it was indicated to us by multiple people inside the Limestone program that number 88 took over as the offensive coordinator.
And when you have a player that can do that, that's special. That's a big-time player. That's a special player, and you know you got something in him.
Number 40, Devin Vanderite, who played for Coach Bauer and myself last year, probably would have dreamed of being an offensive coordinator during the COVID season of 2021. We continue to enjoy the marching Panthers out on the field. Working the camera tonight is 13-year-old 8th grader at Washington Middle School, an avid reader himself, at least his mom wants him to be an avid reader. That is Charles Schimmerhorn working the camera. Still next to me is Coach Blake Bauer. Special thank you to our IT director, the man behind the computer, Caleb Baumgarten, and Mr. Herb Noblock, our boss, for making this all happen tonight. For those of you just joining the broadcast, we are 5 minutes away, and we are going to enjoy every single moment of this here in 2021. The crowd is not as large as Kankakee, but keep in mind last week that was number 6 Kankakee up versus 6A number 3 Washington. Tonight, though, there is a special night. This is Veterans Night and First Responders Night. Coach, something very special happened at midfield. My wife's family, Mr. Reed and Mrs. Reed, are very good friends with the man that was presented and honored tonight. His name's Les Roth. I believe Mr. Roth is in his mid-90s. As a history teacher, I try to instill in all of my kids that walk into class the importance of understanding the sacrifice of so many out there. Les Roth fought at a battle that you and I can't even probably begin to imagine. In 1945, Les Roth was on an island in the middle of the Pacific called Iwo Jima, where 22,000 Japanese soldiers were embedded. To me, this is not just a night to honor Les Roth. This is a night to honor all of our veterans as the Washington Panthers come out with the American flag on a very, very special evening.
Who was part of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Inherent Resolve, Operation Enduring Freedom, is a veteran with 21 years of military service and is also the current WCHS facility director.
Holding the American flag, as Mr. Brett Parrott describes the many veterans that have been on this field. There's also a young man holding that American flag. That is Brock Skaggs. Lost to an injury last year near the end of the spring season. Brock Skaggs tore his ACL and will be out indefinitely or throughout the entire season. He did take a college visit to St. Xavier. Brock is an outstanding young man, and it's very nice to see him a part of tonight's ceremonies. Setting the stage for tonight's game, Washington and Limestone. This rivalry goes back to 1953. That is the year that Limestone officially became a high school. Prior to that, students that lived in the Bartonville area attended Pekin High School, or they sometimes trekked over to Peoria. And the victories for Washington have added up over the years. Coach Darryl Crouch, since he has been at Washington, is a stunning 15-1 against Limestone. His only loss coming in 2006, a touchdown loss in that year, the only year that Darryl Crouch did not make the playoffs, mind you. Darryl Crouch is also joined by other legendary coaches that have 35 total victories against Limestone. Coach, we're looking forward to a rivalry tonight that goes back to 53. And now let's talk a little bit about Darren Driscoll. You talked on the phone with him today during our prep hour. And what did you learn and what insight did you gain from Coach Driscoll?
Well, to start, he's got a lot of respect for the Washington Panthers. And, you know, he really, really wants to build that program. You know, I think it's been, since 2016 they've made the playoffs. And I think he's all in and trying to get all those kids bought into what they got to do to get back to the playoffs.
Very good. Coach, indeed, that last time that Limestone made the playoffs, that was Washington defeating them in the playoffs. I want to bring up now Lauren Peacock. He was probably discussed in our interview with Coach Driscoll for a good 15 minutes.
Yes.
Coach Peacock is a legend at Limestone. Played in the early 1980s, Hall of Fame wide receiver, and took his team to a second place in state. When Coach talks about an offensive coordinator that loves to draw plays and loves to be creative, is that indicating to the viewers at home that tonight we're going to see some trickery, we're going to see some balls getting aired out?
I think you got to think that way. But I think what you're going to do, I think you're going to see Limestone throw the ball. He likes to throw the ball around the field, and that's got to be a fun offense for the players to play in. And Coach Peacock, he's just a football junkie. Anytime you got a guy drawing up plays in his free time, you know he loves it.
When multiple people describe Coach Peacock as bigger than life, I really wish we would have gotten to meet Coach Peacock before the game. For those of you that want to see him, though, there's a rumor on the street that he's the owner of Peacock's Pub. That might be a good place to go. After the Highland game, I have the honor and the privilege to do stats on road games with some mathematicians from Washington, legends in their own. And we were looking for a good restaurant on the way home from Highland. We didn't find one. We ended up finding a Denny's in Litchfield that was a little controversial. I had the chicken tenders and kind of regretted that moment. I think if we're coming home from Limestone next year, I think we're going to stop at Peacock's
We
Pub.
will. We'll go to Peacock's Pub with the chicken tenders at Denny's, huh?
Chicken tenders at Denny's.
Were they serving breakfast? Because I feel like their pancakes would have been good.
The man across the table from me ordered the pancakes and was quite happy with them. I was not happy with the tenders.
Okay. Pancakes is always a good option.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you really don't want to know about my palate and my taste, and you don't want to know about Denny's in Litchfield. So we know that we do not have a sponsor from here on out named Denny's, but we definitely have a football game coming up. This is the beginning of the first quarter. It is 1-1 Washington, Middle Illini, and Limestone will be receiving it. Kicking off is number 2, Paul Spohr, who might be argued right now as being one of the most important components of this Panther football team. Last week, he just barely missed a 42-yarder. And this game is underway on September 10th of 2021. That kick is out of the back of the end zone. Limestone's going to come out on the field. Coach Lauren Peacock is the offensive coordinator. Coach Driscoll described him as, it is his offense. He makes the decisions. He calls the plays. Coach, you're going to see some pro set.
Yep.
You're going to see a lot of I formation. Predict for us this first series here for Limestone.
I think he's going to come out and run the ball to start. I think he's going to let his young quarterback settle in a little bit. You might see some short throws, like some throws to the running back out of the backfield, potentially Driscoll, just to get him some nice, easy completions to get himself settled in.
And there is Caleb Bieneman under center now as we are in the pro set. That's I formation. Bieneman calls it out. The snap is made, and there is our first carry of tonight. A minimal gain on the play. Washington talked about in the Monday practice they were going to be a 4-4. For our viewers, yes, but more specifically for me, what's 4-4 defense mean?
So a 4-4 for Washington means they've got 4 down linemen and 4 backers. And then that puts you in cover 3 on the backside on the top end for the DBs and the safety. So 4-4 would be 4 down linemen, 4 backers. And I think what you're going to see from Washington is moving a little bit around here and then showing it some blitzing action, what you might see here.
That's Frank Driscoll in the backfield. It looks like 2 tight ends on the field in the I formation, and that is Driscoll running off tackle to the left and picking up about 2 to 3 on the play. So we've seen Driscoll, and now we are seeing a little bit of a pattern. It's going to be 3rd down, and we'll call it about 8.
If you're Washington, this is where you want Limestone. You want them to their down and distance to be long. You don't want to put Limestone with a back like Driscoll in a 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1. You want them to force them to throw the ball in a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8.
This is where Washington typically dials up the pressure from the outside, and from the inside, number 13, Cade Bescheid, who is a tomahawk missile that loves a good hit and tries to smell out wherever that hit can be.
Got a trip set here.
Bieneman back to throw. He is under pressure. That ball is thrown over the middle. It's incomplete. Number 5, typically wearing number 4, but tonight he's number 5. Drew Lewis was in the vicinity. Driscoll was the intended target. Sophomore Bieneman 0 for 1 on his first pass, and with 10 minutes and 28 seconds left, it's 4th down and long for the Rockets. And the dynamic number 5, Drew Lewis, is back. He runs a sub-5. He runs a sub-44.5. This man can absolutely fly in the open field. Let's see if Limestone kicks to him. Last week, we saw all sorts of special teams. We saw some blunders. We saw some turnovers by both teams on special teams. And there is a short kick. Washington is yelling fire on the play, and that ball will come to a rest at about the 47-yard line. We now see quarterback senior from St. Pat's Junior High here in town. Noah is coming out. And talk a little bit about Noah Burlett's progression from Highland in week 1 to a very, very dynamic, aggressive Kankakee team.
Yeah, he threw for a lot of yards in week 1 against Highland. I thought last week their pressure was really getting to him, and he had to kind of scramble around and make some throws on his own. 16 for 23 the first week, and only half of that, or 16 attempts then in week 2. So, you know what? Noah looked good in pregame. I thought he throws a good ball, nice spiral. So we'll see what he can do tonight.
That is Lewis in motion. That's Lewis around the left, and Drew Lewis already involved as he is hauled down on the sideline by Frank Driscoll. We're going to be talking a lot about number 88 throughout, able to go from sideline to sideline there to bring down Lewis. So we saw Burlett out of the shotgun. Lewis was put in action very early, and you notice that they ran to Isaac Mapson's side, who's been described by many on the Washington coaching staff as a superb blocker on the outside.
Yep. So last week, between Lewis and Mapson, they only had 5 touches. Tonight, they give, obviously, the ball to Lewis on the first play. They got to get the ball in Lewis and Mapson's hands tonight, more than 5 touches.
The coaches were very satisfied with the progression of the offensive line. They were not so much satisfied versus Highland, but against Kankakee, they said they performed better. And there he is, wrapped down on the play. That is big number 78, who came up so many times. Coach Driscoll talked about him and talked about him and talked about him. He made the comment that Ty Fate would play for any team in the Mid-Illini Conference.
Yep. Well, and what they did on that play is they got Lewis going in motion. They wanted to get him on a little wheel route here, and Limestone doubled him. So that's obvious. That's their emphasis now, is to take him away. And now you might see on the backside here, or on the wide side of the field, potentially getting a double team with Mapson as well.
Limestone will come out in a 3-3. Coach Bauer described to you what a 4-4 was. A 3-3 is going to keep those linemen fresh. They're going to sub in, they're going to sub out, but the ultimate goal is to keep them off the backers. There is some pressure from Fate again, and he rips him to the ground. Noah Burlett was feeling the fire, the heat from the backside there, as Ty Fate came after him again.
The play developed a little slow. It was a screen play for Borges, so they wanted to get Borges into some space with the screen, and the defensive linemen were just too quick and made a good play.
That's a senior out there, Ty Fate. The seniors on Limestone have really taken charge. As we look at this football team, there's a blend of youth and there's a blend of great leadership, and Ty Fate was talking about that. That ball is going to go into the end zone. It's going to be Limestone ball now at the 20. So 1 possession for both teams, a 3-and-out for both teams. Limestone will come back out on the field. And we are at 8 minutes and 26 seconds with no score in the first quarter.
Let's see what they do here. First 3 plays they had were directed at Driscoll. 2 runs, and then they look to pass to him on the 3rd down. Let's see if they can get a couple more guys involved, like Morse, to see if they can make a couple plays here. Because I'm sure Washington, they've already known about Driscoll, so they're keying in on him big time tonight.
Immediately off the field, the offensive line now is huddled around Coach Malinowski, as Coach Malinowski does have access to an iPad to watch the game live, rewind it. I'm sure he's coaching up that line after Ty Fate was in the backfield on 2 straight snaps. Washington puts a ton of pressure, as that is Driscoll brought down behind the line. That ball is now on about the 18-yard line for Limestone's 2nd possession. I talked a little bit earlier about Jim Malinowski. Jim Malinowski brings so much experience. The Panther coaching staff is surrounded by experienced coaches. This is a man that was a tryout with the Chicago Bears. He played professionally in Germany. Both of his kids right now are playing collegiate football as long snappers. If those offensive linemen are smart and intelligent, which I'm sure they are taking in every word that Coach Malinowski is telling them. There he is in motion. That is Driscoll. Driscoll out in the flat, and that was talked about. That ball is on the ground, but it is being ruled as incomplete. Coach Stevens at the Monday practice discussed at length, when Driscoll is motion, Driscoll is going in the flat, and you must keep him under you. Coach, explain to me what that means for a defensive player.
To keep him under him means that you can't let him get behind him. So what they want to do is they want to get Driscoll into the flat, but what Washington wants to do is not let him get behind that defense. And then at that point, if you keep him underneath, you got to make a play, right? Because from there, it's one-on-one. It's mano-a-mano, who can make the play.
3rd down and long for the Rockets. members of the Mid-Illini Conference since 1982. These are two inaugural teams in the Mid-Illini. Biederman fumbles the snap. That ball is on the ground. Washington is pointing right now as if this football is in their possession. And the football is being turned over. It's the first turnover of the night. At this moment last week, at this time, Kankakee had already punched the ball into the end zone.
Yep.
Kankakee then was going to take over on downs on a failed punt, a fake punt. It was 14-0 before you and I blinked. Tonight, perhaps the football gods are looking down upon Washington a little bit differently. 7 minutes and 34 seconds. They're in the red zone.
Big play for the Panthers, and when you get in the red zone, you got to score touchdowns. This is a big one for the Panthers. They got to cash this in.
There's a handoff to the workhorse of this team as he bounces off two tackles. He's around the outside. There is a flag on the play, and
it's coming back.
this has been the Achilles heel of this Washington football team. And week 1 against Highland, 9 flags against Washington, and they escaped with a 30-20 victory. Last week, penalties cost them. 13 penalties last week against Kankakee.
Yeah, that's it's as a wide receiver, that's a hard thing to do because you want to help your teammate, you want to make a play, but you've got to make sure that's a block in the back. You've got to make sure that you can get to his chest, right? So if you're behind him and you push him in the back, that's a penalty. That receiver has to just maybe stand there and not so much shove, just kind of be there as a blocker, stand, and let that guy get some extra yards.
This is going to bring up a first down and very long. Well, Washington has had adversity, like many teams throughout the last year and a half. All these teams have gone through adversity. This is where Coach Crouch's team is so disciplined, so accountable. One mistake doesn't cost. You bounce back, you battle harder, and you probably go right back to Borges out of the I formation. And instead, that is Jack Lemus. In the fall, he plays football and is a tailback. In the spring, Jack Lemus is a center fielder who was part of that Final Four state team. Lemus up the middle for a gain of about 5 or 6 on the play. Nice to see him get some early action and nice to see him get some positive yards.
Right, and in week 1, Lemus only had 2 attempts, and then in week 2, he only had 1. So it's nice to see him get the ball early here tonight.
Washington with 2 tight ends. That's Cade Bescheid on the right side of that offensive line. And that is Cade Bescheid that they ran against. We were at the Monday practice. It was being bantered around. How can we use some of our physicality? And we see Cade Bescheid, who is a human missile on defense, typically lined up in the fullback spot. It appeared right there they lined him up as a tight end.
And that's the nice thing about Bescheid. You can put him in that fullback. You could put him at a tight end. You could almost put him at a wide receiver in the slot. He's just so versatile what he can do. And that play, he was a lead blocker for Lemus on the nice touchdown run.
You talked earlier about number 64, Isaac Anderson, who was moving from center to guard and is a defensive end in their 3-3 defense. And we talked a little bit about his 3.8 GPA. I was honored to have Cade first semester last year in advanced placement U.S. history. He's a bright young man that can handle the workload. But, Coach, I have to tell you a story that I think as a coach really resonated with me on Monday. So they were lined up on the line, and they're coming off a game where they had 13 penalties. And it was the very first play from scrimmage that they were walking through. And one of the offensive linemen jumped on the very first play. Coach Crouch didn't say anything. Coach Wisher, the offensive line guru, didn't say anything. Instead, it was number 13, Cade Bescheid, said, "This is the first play from scrimmage. Get it right and get it done." It was very impressive because when kids lead kids, you can really start to turn corners.
Yeah, it's one thing for coaches to lead them, and there's a huge spot for that. There's a place for that. But once the players start leading the players, you know you got something special.
Number 2, Paul Spohr, who dreams of becoming a data analytics specialist, which I will have to Google to tell you exactly what that is on to kick right now. Paul Spohr brings just such strength in that leg, able to kick it from deep. Sometimes you can take special teams for granted, but special teams is an important component that can really, really help a team win a game. And that ball is kicked well out of the end zone. One of the 224 marching Panthers down there had a chance to go ahead and take that one in. At 6 minutes and 51 seconds, it is 7-0. It is 7-0 out there. If you are listening at home, we would appreciate in the comments section if you would put the score from time to time. That way, we can really let the viewers know out there exactly what's going on. We understand that this game is being shown at Brickhouse and Keps. So again, if you're a viewer out there, we do not have access to a scoreboard, nor can we actually see one on the screen. It is 7-0 at the 6 minute and 51 second mark. It is Washington's lead. Sophomore Caleb Bieneman under snap now, under center. He is going to take this snap out of the I formation. Washington with about 9 in the box that time, and that is up the middle. It looked like a quarterback keeper, as that is Bieneman, who had a rough game against Mount Zion on the ground. He was 3 carries for -6, but that was not Bieneman. That was number 40. It gives me an opportunity to talk about Merrick Manise, who ran for 38 yards last week.
Yep. He's another feature of their offense. It's surprising that he didn't get a touch in the first 2 possessions. I am a little surprised to see Limestone not go in the shotgun as much as I thought they would yet. A lot of under center, a lot of running the ball in the middle, and they're really going with that power formation now with 2 tight ends.
They did talk about at the practice on Monday as that ball is just overshot. He did get behind the defense. That is number 11, Sam Morse, the anchor on the 4x1 team. He got behind Drew Lewis, and Drew Lewis can fly. Sam Morse must be able to fly too.
He's fast. He can run, and if you let him get behind you, he'll make the play. That was a nicely thrown ball. You just got to throw it up a little bit higher and let Sam go get that. That's one of the things, though, about coverage. Are you in press coverage, or are you kind of giving some space? Last week we saw the Panthers give space to Kankakee. Can they press a little bit and kind of bump him off his route initially?
Morse fought through some adversity as a sophomore, but a great story now as he is definitely one of the go-to playmakers on this Limestone Rocket team. Quarterback is hit and hit hard. There were a few Panthers there in the vicinity. That was Tyler Casey in the vicinity. You also had number 46 out there in the vicinity, and that, of course, for the Panthers. We've got another 4th down for Limestone, already down 7-0 at the 6 minute mark, and this is the 3rd time that the Rocket punter's been on the field.
So I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but it's interesting now they've got Lemus and Lewis back as punt returners. So not just Lewis this time, but Lemus is back as well.
Coach, I traveled to Highland with the stat crew. I do not remember a single kick going in Drew Lewis's vicinity. Last week versus Kankakee, Kankakee fumbled one of the snaps on the punt, so we didn't see it, and the other punt only went 14 yards. If you were coaching on the other side of the ball, what would you do if you saw Drew Lewis and Jack Lemus, 2 of the fastest guys in the middle line back there?
Well, you'd kick away from them, which is easier said than done. I was never a punter, so I don't know how hard that is, but I can imagine just trying it out in PE class sometimes. It's not as easy as it looks to say, oh, just kick away from him. The ball can sometimes just go wherever. So if you've got 2 guys back there like that, your coverage team has to be flying down the field, but also they've got to stay engaged, and they've got to keep them pushed back to the inside or to the outside, wherever your coverage team is going to push them.
There is the snap. The kick is up, and that is Lemus underneath the ball. Lemus calls him. Lemus has bobbled the kick, and that ball is loose on the ground. He was calling for a fair catch, and the ball will stay in the side and stay in the hands of Washington. As an amateur at football that played in high school and did not play very well, but watched a lot of NFL, one of my fears, a morbid fear, would be calling for a fair catch in the NFL and some guy not seeing my fair catch signal and absolutely positively driving me through the ground.
Just getting destroyed, yeah. It's a harder job than it looks, I think. I never had to do it. I'm glad I never had to do it, because when you got guys flying at you and you got to catch a ball that's that high in the air, no thanks.
I formation pro right, that is Bescheid, who earlier lined up as a tight end. On the defensive side of the ball, got pressure on Bieneman, and now Bescheid is masquerading as Washington's Swiss Army knife, as there he's got a fullback dive for a gain of about 7. The offensive line, watching from afar versus Highland, I did not know if they played well or if they played poorly. The coaching staff was not happy, though. They did not make any bones about it. We are definitely would never call out an individual player, but at practice it was clear that they did not think that offensive line played well. Versus Kankakee, to the eye, I would have said that the offensive line didn't play well, but yet Coach Crouch was very happy with the progression, talked about how much better they had improved. Hopefully tonight we're seeing progression more here in week number 3.
And that could be just guys getting used to playing with each other. You know, that first game sometimes is tough because if you think that Inside Panther Night was your your experience, then that's not a lot of experience, especially not playing against another team. So it might just take this offensive line a couple weeks to get where they need to be, and they're just going to keep progressing and progressing as the season goes on. And you want to be playing your best football in late October, November.
We'll have to keep our eye, and hopefully our cameraman, Charlie Shermore, can zoom in from time to time right before the snap and then zoom out so you all can see it. But it was being coached up, communication on the line. It starts with center. When he's not playing football, he is practicing jiu-jitsu, Jordan Martin, who starts to point out the coverages, starts to point out the assignments. And I noticed on Monday there was a lot more communication between Billy Morrison and Jay Wireman and Case Foster. And when Luke Wise was out there, they were talking so much more. It's got to be an important part of an offensive line for chemistry. There is B-Shide in the flat. It's as if Washington studied Limestone's offensive playbook, and they are using B-Shide as number 88, Frank Driscoll. There he catches in the flat against the defense.
I like that play. You get Burlett rolling to his right. You get B-Shide out in the flat. You know, that sets you up at least in a situation to maybe potentially, you know, that kind of makes your playbook a little bit bigger instead of going, you know, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. You got a little bit more manageable situation here.
We are 3rd down and 7, under 4 minutes on the clock. It is Washington 7, Limestone 0. This is a 3rd down opportunity for Noah Burlett, the senior, who is also in his 3rd game at quarterback, just like Bieneman on the other side. There is some pressure. Burlett stepped up in the pocket. He's around the right, and he runs out of bounds, but that is a 1st down for a very composed Noah Burlett.
Absolutely.
As running around the outside was number 80, Alex Byard, who had visions of hitting a quarterback from the blind side.
Good job by Burlett stepping up in the pocket. He found his lane. It looked to me like Limestone was in man coverage. Anytime you get man coverage and you're running verticals, everything kind of opens up for the quarterback. He had a lane. He took it. Good job by Burlett.
A 3-3 defense, Coach Bauer. Does that feature blitzing? Does that feature people coming in from all angles? Is it a tough read because that's not a typical defense at the high school level?
No, it's not that tough a read. I think he can read that. That should be a good read for him.
Lewis is in motion. Earlier, this was a handoff. There is a counter play that scored last week against Kankakee, and that was Lemus running off the left. Last week in the second quarter, when Washington made their run, they faked the exact same play to Drew Lewis around the right and gave it to Borges, who scampered for 30-some-odd yards.
2nd and 8, Washington.
If you're good at a play, Coach Venturi in the 1980s, from all of the alumni that played for the legendary Hall of Fame coach Joe Venturi, they all talked about the same thing. He only had a few plays, but the philosophy was simple. If we can run them and run them well, they can't stop us.
Right.
I'd like to think if you can run that play, you can get anything you want to out of it. Here is Burlett back. He steps back, 2-step drop. He's got Drew Lewis all by himself. And Lewis for a touchdown for the Washington Panthers as Noah Burlett finds the dynamic 3-sport athlete. Football in the fall, basketball in the winter, and track in the spring. Drew Lewis with his first touchdown catch of 2021.
Good pass by Burlett. You could tell there was some confusion there in the Limestone secondary. Washington took advantage of it for the touchdown.
Washington's got one of the best wide receiver coaches you can have around. That is Rob Garcia. Opened up his own business this summer for verticals. Talks about the dedication to the game of football. Rob Garcia takes great pride in not only talking to the quarterbacks, but also training wide receivers. Our wide receivers are improving from the spring to right now. Their route running their ability to get open, and I love the fact how they go up and go get that football when it's a 50-50
Right
ball.
at its highest point. That's all you can ask from a receiver, and they've got strong hands. They're generally going to win that battle. So good job by Coach Garcia. He's been getting them ready all spring and summer, and they are ready to go for the fall.
The game just continues to evolve. Specialization of athletes in sports. I'm not talking about specialization of a one-sport athlete,
Right.
but how the game has changed over time. I remember as a child watching wide receivers, they were oftentimes 5'10", 5'11", and they were burners. They were speed demons. Now we are seeing this evolution of the game of Isaac Mapson, 6'6".
Yep.
Drew Lewis, 6'2". Look, Limestone's got Frank Driscoll, who is a big, strong kid. The athletes just get bigger, stronger, faster, and that's in virtually every sport across the board.
It is. It's an ever-changing landscape of athletes, and they just continue to get bigger, stronger, faster, like you said. And when you get those 6'6" guys on the edge, that's hard to defend.
Coach, I won't bore the audience out there, but I love TED Talks, and there's a great TED Talk about the specialization of sports and how oftentimes at very young ages, certain physical traits, long arms or long torsos or big wide shoulders or long legs are sometimes identified maybe on accident, and then those kids go on to be very good at their sports, men and women. So
Right.
now we've got Limestone back on the field. Under 3 minutes on the clock in the first quarter. There is a little miscommunication. Perhaps Biederman did not read it right, or maybe it was Driscoll. Either way, it was a failed handoff, and Driscoll was hit and brought down.
This feels like a big drive for Limestone. Coming off a 3-and-out, a turnover, and then another 3-and-out. This is a big chance for Limestone, I think, to at least put a couple first downs together. Can they get the ball into Washington territory, which they have not been able to do? They just got to get some momentum rolling here.
Hall of Famer offensive coordinator Lauren Peacock, who played at Eastern Illinois, is now looking at a 2nd down and 15 as he's got trips to the right. He's got 5 wide receivers. That's an empty backfield. The sophomore quarterback, that's called a tunnel screen. That was well scouted on Monday. They talked to B-Shide on Monday. Coach Stevens specifically said, you see this formation and you see this coming. Go in there and lay some lumber on number 88. And we just saw that happen live.
That was a big hit by Beachside.
Scouting is so important in every sport. The amount of time that high school coaches at all levels and all sports put into their craft is absolutely phenomenal. Whether it's Limestone or perhaps it's even Washington on a Sunday, they are spending hours upon hours. You got 2 tight ends now. You have a single running back in the backfield. Biederman runs out to the left on the roll, and he is incomplete as he overshot number 11. But there is going to be defensive pass interference on number 5, Drew Lewis, who earlier scored a touchdown for Washington to make the score 14-0.
It's a good throw by Biederman. Rolling to his left, thrown across his body. That's a tough throw. Impressed.
The Achilles heel of Washington, the thorn in the side. Last week, Kankakee had multiple times where they were 3rd down and long, and a few times they were 4th down and long. It wasn't necessarily that Kankakee converted. It was Washington allowed them to convert with pass interference calls or some other infraction. Coach, how do you clean that up in a practice to take away from these situations? Or is this good football that's aggressive and sometimes these things happen?
I think sometimes it's a bit of both. You got to clean up your play in practice. You got to, stop being so hands-on sometimes. And it's hard. It's a hard position to play.
There's a fullback dive. A small gain on the play.
And
that is number 40.
If you watch the NFL, it's gone to an offensive game. The cornerback position is one of the hardest to play because if they lay one hand on that receiver or they have one holding, I mean, it's an initial flag. So tough spot to be in, especially when you're backpedaling, and that guy, the receiver's running forward. It's a hard play to make, and sometimes you get a flag.
We have 2 wide receivers out to the right, I formation in the back. There's a handoff. Bieneman did trip on the handoff. Washington is shooting gaps right now, slanting and getting in the backfield. Number 46, Tyler Casey, a multi-sport athlete, a phenomenal wrestler in the winter, and a very good defensive lineman here right now. Washington holding firm. There's about 5 seconds left. This is going to expire, and the first quarter is going to come to an end. Blake, we take a step back just for a half a second now and get to talk to our audience. This is a completely different game than it was in week number 2.
Sure.
At this point last week, it was 21-0 Kankakee. But remarkably, the crowd is pretty docile tonight.
Yep.
There's a little bit of a calm over the crowd. What's your thoughts on Washington's adjustments from Kankakee to here? What are you seeing?
Well, they're winning up front right now. If you notice, they're getting a lot of pressure from their defensive line, and that's causing a lot of disruption in that Limestone offense. As you just saw, some confusion with who's getting the handoff. Am I supposed to roll out this way? The quarterback was just under center, tripped because of the pressure that was put on the center and the guard from our defensive line. We're just winning the battle up front right now, and that's why Washington's up 14-0.
Limestone fans that are viewing along with us, welcome to the broadcast. That was Blake Bauer that was just speaking. Charlie Schermerhorn is working the camera. Special thank you to IT specialist Caleb Baumgarten. October 1st, Limestone's homecoming. If you can make it to October 1st, Limestone's homecoming game, you'll see him take on Canton. It's a special night at Limestone. It's a Hall of Fame night. The 1981 and 1982 girls basketball team is going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. Also inducted that night, Angela Vollmer, a standout 1990s girls basketball player. Yolanda Wright is going to be inducted that night too. Memory serves me right, she was a long jumper. And Limestone great. Baseball coach, AD. I was at a place called the Pekin Union Mission in the 1990s. One of his sons, Keith, was there. Mr. Jim Corpus is being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Just a wonderful night planned on October 1st. So Limestone fans, make your way there. Enjoy the parade and enjoy the Hall of Fame production. That ball is incomplete. It was a screen pass intended for Driscoll. Driscoll goes back and picks up his young quarterback. That young quarterback has grown. He went from about 6'1" to 6'3" in the span of 12 months. He took up a personal trainer during the COVID era, which is very, very common right now. We've seen that in our own program. We've seen that here at Washington. But the one thing that really stood out to me that Coach Driscoll said is Caleb understands right now that he needs to keep on learning on the field, and he's going to his seniors around him. The offensive linemen, his wide receivers, he's got a senior running back. Pretty smart move, Coach. You were a sophomore quarterback. What was it like?
For bad snap on the punt.
That's a line drive. We're going to see Drew Lewis with the return here. He did have his right knee on the ground. We were really hoping to see our first return of 2021 out of the playmaker, Drew Lewis, but we were denied by a knee on the turf.
Receiver's knee was down, so the ball will be marked.
And the previous play before that, Beachside with the hit again. He is all over the place tonight, and he is an animal out there. He just made a couple big hits. He's really changed the tone of this game for the Panthers.
Looking at the sidelines right now, Washington sideline quite full. For those of you listening to the broadcast, I've been teaching at Washington High School since 2006, 2007. This is the largest enrollment Washington's had. We're at about 1,550. The band is enormous. The football program's got a big sideline. They are playing tonight Limestone with an enrollment of about 930 students at this time. There was a handoff to Lewis, but that play is drawn dead. That was the same play that they jumped in practice. That was the exact same play that the offensive lineman jumped, where KB Scheid said, we've got to get this figured out right now. The call on the field is against Limestone. So KB Scheid's words got everybody to stand still. They were really practicing, Coach, going on two. That second, whatever his cadence is, why is that so effective, especially in high school football?
Discipline. And once you run one cadence a few times.
Borges is going to pop that run out to the left. He's going to pick up two. There's some counter action going
Yeah.
on. There was a fake handoff to a misdirect to the left.
And I'll get back to the count and the cadence thing here. Once you go on one a few times, the defense starts to get into that rhythm, and they start to try to jump that snap count. That's when you can get them when you go on two. Great design there, too, on that run with the counter from Lewis, and then going back to that side with Borges. That's a good play.
The numbers game is very important in any sport. Depth can win you games. Limestone in their program has around 50 at the freshman, sophomore, and varsity level. It might be my imagination, but Washington is playing at a quicker pace right now. Is this part of the game plan to wear down Limestone?
Yeah, you've got Limestone on their heels right now, 14-0. You got some players that are playing both ways. This is kind of that time for Washington to put the foot on the gas pedal and kind of wear them down. You're seeing a little bit of difference here. I felt like a lot of run on the first possession. You saw more pass. Or on the first touchdown possession. Then you saw some pass. Now you're seeing more run game.
This is Coach Crouch. He loves power football. He loves to get the big guys the ball and run in between those tackles. And there is Borges with a great fancy footwork. And Borges is at the 10, the 5, and he gets away for a touchdown for the Panthers. That was great offensive line work by a group of young men that have been challenged after Highland, challenged again after Kankakee, challenged by their own teammates in a Monday practice. And Borges, he brings it to pay dirt, and that offensive line definitely needs to be acknowledged because that was a nice hole, and they held their blocks.
Absolutely, and they got to the second level. They got to the linebackers, and they got those guys out of there. And that was one of the big things that Coach Driscoll said today. If they get to the linebackers, we're going to be in trouble.
Coach Driscoll, a former linebacker in high school out in Arizona that ended up moving to the Illinois area. He met his wife. Catherine, at school when he went to Bethel College in Newton, Kansas. Dr. Catherine Driscoll, she's a PhD of anthropology. Coach, tell me a little bit about anthropology and everything you know about this.
Nothing.
That's why he's the best color man in football. So she is Dr. Driscoll, and she's from Bloomington. She's a professor at ISU that brought him back to this area where he did have stints at Normal UI, a stint at Normal West, and now Limestone since 2012. Coaching here now down 21-0 with 10 minutes and 30 seconds. If you are viewing at home, we would ask for your assistance for those people that are watching, whether it's at Kep's or Brickhouse, or maybe you're watching at Peacock's Pub tonight. Who knows? If you would please post the score on the comments section. It's Washington 21 and Limestone 0, 10 minutes and 30 seconds. This is, again, Paul Spohr back on the field. This will be his fourth time now he's kicked off. We are getting very used to the kickoff. Possession is important, but field position is so crucial in this game, and this is Washington's weapon. Virtually every single time Washington has to go to special teams, they know exactly where that ball is going to start. Coach, we were interrupted. I truly am interested. I never really asked you much about when you're a quarterback. As basketball coaches, we tend to really just talk 99% of the time about the sport that we love so much. Did you play varsity football as a sophomore?
One game.
One game. What was that like? As I'm trying to get in the head right now of, you got number 7, Kenyon Johnson, a sophomore quarterback. You've got number 16, Caleb Bieneman. What's it like going out there as a 15-year-old kid playing against 17, 18-year-old men?
It's hard, but it's fun. So my first game was in the state playoffs. I'll let you call the play here. Hold on.
I was just going to tell you, I played, as a sophomore, I played a thing called, if you've ever heard of it before, Super Tecmo Bowl. I was very calm, cool, and collective when I was Warren Moon for the Houston Oilers, and I hit a lot of deep passes. I was very good at Tecmo Bowl, but I never actually physically got to play football as a sophomore in a varsity field. Return to that, please.
So first start was at Addison Driscoll in the state playoffs. We lost 28-7, and they actually ended up winning the state championship that year.
Had to throw that 2 cents in that you got beat by a state
Yes.
champion. Was the starter hurt, Coach? Is that why you got to play?
Yes.
You didn't earn that spot? You just filling in?
I kind of got thrown in there.
We all have roles. There's a timeout on the field.
Second down play, we have a timeout, Limestone.
While we have a timeout, tonight was a special night. It was a night in which, as a U.S. history teacher, just brought absolute joy to be able to watch the countless number of veterans that were lined up on the sideline. We also had a large number of first responders. If you're from Washington and you want to be a part of this, I would love for you to be able to join us on September 12th of 2021. There is a memorial ceremony at Lincoln Park in front of the helicopter. It is going to be honoring those people that sacrificed so much on September 11th. We all remember those tragic days. For those of us that were here, as an educator in the building, it is sometimes very difficult to understand that the kids that we're teaching today weren't alive on that horrific date. I remember Coach Bauer so well. 7:46 a.m., 40 seconds, flight number 11, hitting the 93rd floor of the World Trade Center's the North Tower. And then just moments later, at 8:02 our time, the South Tower being hit again. It's surreal. It still hurts to even think about it. So again, if you're capable, it will be the last time that event is held, September 12th, 4:30, Lincoln Park. Back to action, and Limestone is brought down behind the line. Washington's defense is looking very hungry and very aggressive.
And you can tell they are expecting run because those safeties are way up close to the box. They're not playing deep at all, so they're expecting the run.
Washington has been very, very active. The linebackers are getting in the backfield, which would indicate to us up here that the defensive line is doing their job and they're getting good penetration into the backfield.
I like Beachside tonight. He seems to be really locked in and engaged. He had a great possession earlier with 2 big hits, and now you could tell he's locked in. He's communicating on this possession.
Coach, we can't hide anything on a broadcast. Both teams we talked to talked about Cade Beachside for 5, 10, 15 minutes at Highland and Kankakee. He's a heavy emphasis on this team as that ball is incomplete. The intended target was the man that had 6 catches last week against Mount Zion. That was Sam Morse. And the timing is a little bit off for Limestone. There's pressure coming in from the outside. There's pressure coming up from the middle. And Drew Lewis is one of the best covermen in the Middle Illini.
Yep, and there was Beachside on that blitz, and that just disrupted that timing just enough to make that pass not on target.
Limestone's punter is back out on the field. There are 2 guys back for the Panthers. This is Coach Gary Beard's specialty. Gary Beard is the special teams coach for Washington. This is going to be Jack Lemus. Now they're fighting for it. Lewis picks up the ball after Lemus had fumbled it. Lewis is still on his feet. And about the 37, what could have been disaster is now turned around for about a gain of 10 to 15 on the punt return. Washington's going to be starting in prime real estate.
They are, and it feels like they've had great field position all night for the most part. Just another opportunity in this position. You know, if you're Washington, you got to think touchdown. You got to put this team down 4 touchdowns, you know, with potentially another possession coming before half is over.
Washington's first game against Highland was a battle. It was a 10-point victory, but that was a close game throughout. And we saw the Kankakee game. It was 21-14 deep into the 3rd quarter. Kankakee was able to score. However, that 28-14 game was much closer than a 2-touchdown game. There is a fake to Lewis. That is Beachside in the flat, and that is Isaac Mapson by himself. But, Coach, there is a flag smack dab in the middle. We get to see inside Panther football. That play was practiced on Monday. As a coach, I absolutely love watching when the hard work of the coaching staff, which Coach Crouch is surrounded by brilliance. I am surrounded by what I think is the best basketball coaching staff in the state. When you put in that time and then your young men go out and execute it.
Yep.
But right there, frustration again as there was a flag on the play. What was the penalty, Coach Bauer?
I can tell you I don't know. I was watching Burlett and then I was watching Mapson downfield, so I don't know what the penalty is.
Coach, you like to take in Isaac Mapson, do that somersault in the back of the end zone. Don't act like you didn't see that.
Hey, when you make a big play, sometimes you got to celebrate.
Coach, if he scores on a breakaway layup, because we know Isaac's not going to throw it down and dunk it, but if Isaac scores on a breakaway layup and he does a somersault, you might need to hold me on the sidelines because I might be out there on the field. But
Hey,
that was good execution on the play.
He might dunk it. He's getting a little bit more bouncy.
I like that. Keep that guy doing hang cleans, squats, calf raises, whatever, because he's definitely playing above the rim. is what I
Going to
can
him
see.
again.
They're going right back to the big fella. Mapson with focus, and that ball was underthrown. Last night on the Thursday night telecast, they talked about a back shoulder throw. Was that purposely done?
Yeah, I mean, I think the throw itself was underthrown, but I feel like he threw it in a spot where only Mapson could catch it. So he didn't throw it in a spot where Limestone's DB could get it. He put it on that back shoulder, and he said, all right, Map, go make a play.
I was going up in our fantasy football league, which, by the way, very poor draft by you. I was not impressed with your draft picks overall.
I wasn't either.
But I was impressed last night when Tom Brady stepped back in the pocket. The Buccaneers came back in the fourth quarter and pulled out that victory. But they talked long and hard about his timing, how Brady is the master in his early 40s at finding those routes. This is now a shotgun with two wide receivers on both sides as Burlett steps up in the pocket and attempts to fling it to Borges.
Good pressure by Driscoll. You know, we talked about him being the Swiss Army knife. He's running the ball. He's catching the ball. And now he's in there on the blitz, making Burlett just a touch uncomfortable and forcing a quick throw.
Dr. Driscoll, that is Frank's mother, said he was a potato. We talked about that at the very beginning. I'm believing that means that he can be a French fry, he can be a baked potato, he can be twice baked. He pretty much can do almost anything out there. I'm trying to think of potatoes right now. We should turn this into a challenge. I'm on 3. Can you come up with another version of how to eat a potato? All gratin and potatoes, Coach. I'm now up to 4. Don't make me do this to you right now.
What did you say, mashed?
Mashed potatoes. We're up to 5. We're back to action now. It's 4th down and 15 with 8 minutes on the clock. It is 21-0 in the second quarter. The ball's on the 39. Our broadcast lost focus, and hopefully that didn't trickle down to Washington, as that was a pretty tough possession for the Panthers.
Burlett had to scramble on that one, and Coach Crouch was almost hesitant to send out the punt team like he wanted to go over. It would have been a long, 4th and 16, but
last week when it was 4th and 22 and they were pinned deep in their own territory, Washington did attempt a fake punt. It failed. Tonight now, Spore is going to try to pin Limestone deep. That kick is an absolute gem. That is an absolutely perfect kick that is going to go out of bounds at the 2. I've watched Charlie play Madden, and I've seen him punt, although he doesn't really buy into the whole punting thing. He's kind of like Peoria High, Coach Thornton. Let's just onside kick. Let's never punt, and let's just try to score as many points as possible. That kick was perfectly placed in the coffin corner.
Great kick by Spore, and great job by the coverage team to get down there and pin it deep.
Coach, and during COVID, I kind of fell in love with listening to a podcast. His name is Malcolm Gladwell. And Malcolm Gladwell talked about something that was so neat on one of his podcasts. He discussed the theory that football should never punt, should never kick field goals, and should constantly try to score no matter what the situation is. He started listing all of this data that proved that punting was a waste of time. I don't know, because that's a pretty darn good kick right there.
That's a great
and
kick.
a team that struggled on offense tonight now is very deep in their own zone.
They are, and you're going to probably see a couple runs here to get them a little bit of breathing room to allow Beaneman to at least get some sort of throw off here. And if they don't get a first down, to try to get their punter a little more room so he can punt. He's not deep in his own end zone.
If you're listening at home, we appreciate the text messages that are flooding in right now. Mr. Gordon Kerner, who lives in the great state of Florida. Hope you're enjoying the sunshine these days, Mr. Kerner. He tells me that hash browns is another one that you can do. I'm going to one-up him.
True.
American fries, Coach Bauer. Washington Family Restaurant American Fries. That's Tony Ramadati, a former place kicker. His family owns Washington Family Restaurant. Coach, we've got another penalty marker on the field, but there's some trivia for you, sir. Washington Family Restaurant was formerly what fast food restaurant in the beautiful town of Washington?
I have no idea.
Coach Bauer's origins do not start in Washington. We'll forgive him. If you want to feel free to text us on the listener line, I will give you the props for knowing exactly what restaurant Washington Family Restaurant was prior to.
First down, Limestone.
It's first down for Limestone. That was a first down on a penalty. That is Limestone's first down of the night, and it comes at 6 minutes and 33 seconds in the second quarter. Bieneman now at the snap. He is every bit of 6'3". The coaches told us that he had hit a growth spurt. I'd like to see him continue to develop, Coach. I think this young man's future is very bright, and they also talked up number 7, Kenyon Johnson, about how bright his future is. We might be seeing down the road, we might be seeing a dual quarterback situation out of Limestone.
Potentially, yeah. You're going to get a timeout here from Limestone. They were slow getting the play call in and slow getting out of the huddle. I was really impressed on the last play by Tyler Richardson. He made a great break on the ball, and if that ball is just a little bit better thrown, it's probably picked for a pick 6.
Coach, the listener line is picking up. I feel like this is AM 670 The Score. We have got an answer already. I do want to say before the answer is there, if cameraman Charles Schermerhorn happens to know, do we have it on the live feed too? Is there the comments section? Do we have an answer?
We have an answer.
And the answer is?
Burger King.
Indeed it is. Burger King. Very good. Flame broiled burgers. I believe that is Burger King.
The Whopper.
Home of the Whopper. 99 cents back in 1995.
It's been a long time since I've had a Whopper.
Oh, there was nothing better than the Whopper. I remember the brief stint of Hardee's becoming Carl's Jr.'s.
Carl's Jr.,
And biting into those sandwiches, as I like to say from where I'm from, and just having all that ketchup and mayo running down your face. That Whopper was good, Coach. We do have some updates for you now in a Middle Illini matchup coming to us from Dunlap. Pekin 7, Dunlap 0. The Eagles have recovered a fumble before the half, though. Dunlap is at 87 total yards, and Pekin with a stout offensive line, 125 yards. And Kanye Tyler, who is right now a leading candidate for MVP in the Middle Illini, has got 58 yards rushing and a lone TD.
And there it is again. There he is, Cade Beachside, blowing the play up in the backfield. Great job by Beachside there. He just came right in and blew that play up.
So we have got a second down and 17. For those of you joining us from all over, from Illinois, from Limestone, from Washington, and perhaps even from the beautiful state of Florida, as we find out. We hope you're enjoying this broadcast. This is Middle Illini action, 1-1 Washington versus 0-2 Limestone. Washington is bouncing back right now. There's a high snap, and he is in the end zone in scramble mode under incredible pressure. And there is our safety, and that is a 2 points now on the board for Washington. A high snap took Bieneman back into the end zone. The Washington football team, they descended as fast as they could, and Bieneman had absolutely no place to go.
He didn't have anywhere to go. He got lucky with the bounce. It bounced right to him. I thought for a second he might be able to get away and scramble and throw the ball away, but it wasn't happening.
Former quarterback Coach Bauer there. Do you just hold on to that football and take that hit, or do you attempt to do something like throw it to a sideline? But that would have been a difficult throw.
It would have been a difficult throw, and then you get into intentional grounding if there's no receiver in the area. So, yeah, that situation, that might have been a good read for him just to eat it.
At halftime, we strongly encourage you to stay around. We are honored to bring you the Washington Marching Panthers under the direction of Bradley University grad and 3 decades in charge of the Marching Panthers, Jim Tallman. Also there directing Lisa Parrott, who is from the University of Illinois and brings so much experience with her. And she is the voice that we hear throughout the summer, barking out commands, and I say barking very respectfully. She is tough, and she is disciplined and demands a great deal of accountability from this band. You have 224 moving parts in a band. The amount of time that must go into that to make that look the way it looks and sound the way it sounds, utmost respect and props to the Marching Panthers.
Yeah, it's a lot of time. It's a full class period during the day, and it's practice at night. It's a lot of moving pieces to put together, and they do a great job of doing it.
If you're in the area, you have to stop out tomorrow. September 11th is the Marching Panthers competition. The Washington Band will perform at 8:48 p.m., It is a show that you must see. Coach Bauer shared with us last week in a vulnerable moment how much he loved Disney. I asked him what his favorite Disney movie was, and if you weren't with us last week, he paused for a sound 30 seconds. I might be exaggerating. There is a drop on the kickoff, but he's still on his feet. I believe that's Jack Lemus. Our spotter will help us out in a second, as now we are at about the 33-yard line here for the Panthers. But in a moment of vulnerability, Coach Bauer started talking about Disney. He got a little bit emotional, wanting to go down to Disney again, hang out with Gordon Kerner. But what happened is he really didn't know a single movie. But what I'm getting to is the Marching Panthers are going to be performing Aladdin for you at halftime. What's your favorite number from Aladdin?
Probably Friend Like Me.
Oh, very good.
Yes.
You studied before
Yes, I
tonight's
did.
broadcast.
Yes.
This man is absolutely dedicated to the craft of being the best color man in the city of Washington. Another penalty for Washington. It was a false start.
5-yard penalty remains first down.
Subbing in for the Panthers right now, that is number 11, Brock Pollitt, jumping out on the field. And I see number 16. That is a sophomore. That is Brayson Barth. That's the son of head football coach at Eureka College. That is Coach Barth's son, Kurt Barth. There's some substitutions in and out now, and I do think that is the first time we've seen Brayson Barth in a game. He was in earlier, too. I just failed and neglected to say his name. I formation. There's a handoff to the man that has been everywhere on this football field tonight, Cade Bescheid, nursing a hamstring injury in the first 2 weeks. Coach Crouch is very smart with his young men. I know Cade was not practicing full tilt for the first 2 weeks. This is Cade Bescheid right now, looking very healthy and definitely very aggressive.
He looks to be back at full strength from what we could see.
Pollitt now and Barth are the wide receivers on. Borges is in the backfield, lined up with Bescheid. The offensive line continues to do their job. I see out there on the field, too, tight end Noah Hoogerworth. He is a senior, 5'11", 155-pounder. His dad played fullback at St. Ambrose, so football and power is in his background. There is a beautiful play by Limestone.
Frank Driscoll.
Greeted by middle linebacker Frank Driscoll. Borges had nowhere to go on that one as Driscoll broke through the line.
3rd and 15.
It is 3rd down and 15. This is always a tough predicament for a coach. There's not too many plays in a high school playbook that are going to get you 15 yards every single time.
There's not, but you got two guys in Lewis and Mapson that can get you 15 yards if you let them go get it.
2 tight ends now. We are going to have zone on the strong side, man-to-man on the weak side. That is the idea of Limestone's defense. There's a side blitz, and out in the open field is Borges with a beautiful spin. Borges still on his feet.
I think he got it.
And that third effort, that was all Borges on the play as he danced in open space. Somebody pushed A and B at the same time, and I saw him spin on my screen.
So they cleared everything out. They put Pollitt in motion. They put Mapson on a vertical. They cleared out all that flat, and they said, "Well, here you go, Borges. Now it's one-on-one. Go make a play."
Washington's had a strong tradition of dynamic running backs and strong wide receivers, guys that can make plays in the open field. If you go through the history books and you go through the record books, you see all kinds of things out there. That move reminded me of Dakota Bullard. Coach, I don't know if you remember when Dakota Bullard played, but that young man could flat out catch a football. Heck, he's #1 in receiving yards in a season. He once had a season with 773 yards in one season.
Before the 4th down snap, we had a timeout, Limestone.
I would like to think if the likes of Isaac Mapson had a full year last year with the 9 games and hopefully a deep playoff run, and this year in a deep playoff run, I like to think Isaac Mapson could do some damage in the record books too.
I think so. Yeah, he could. He just, we all got shorted by the COVID season a bit, and that took a pretty big hit to the numbers.
It is 3 minutes and 6 seconds left. It is 23-0. Washington did fall just short. For our cameraman, Charlie, if you would zoom in a little bit, please, on the officials to show them just how short this ball is. It is 4th down, and although the scoreboard indicates 1, It is 4th down and maybe inches. Coach Crouch here is well versed with timeouts still in the arsenal. I predict possibly going on a count, a hard count, maybe just trying to get a quick one here, an easy one out of this.
4th and short after the timeout.
Checking into the game for Washington in the backfield, that is number 46. I apologize. That might be a sophomore that is playing up today. We do not have his name.
13,
Cade Bescheid, short yardage, goal line. He is the man that usually gets fed.
He's the reliable one you can count on in that area.
I like to think he got fed some sweet potatoes there. Just another form of potatoes, Coach. I am now up 5. Gordon Kerner 1, and you are at 0. No, I do believe you came up with mashed potatoes. Angela must have texted you mashed potatoes on the side.
She gets all the credit.
We know who runs the show in the Bauer house. Isaac, you definitely run the show, and he is taken down to the ground. Great penetration by number 18. That is Bryson Williams with just shooting through the Panther offensive line. Burlett hit hard.
Yeah, they went with a play action, and that weak side defensive end went unblocked and was there for the sack.
That is senior Bryson Williams making the play. This is 2nd down and 10. 2 minutes left on the clock, about 20 left on the game clock. Washington now is falling in love with this formation. 2 wide receivers to the left and to the right. And we are going deep. This is Mapson in a one-on-one. And Mapson with the catch. And Mapson is thrown to the ground after the catch. There is a bevy of flags on the field. Mapson with the touchdown. He hands the ball to the referee and walks away with a touchdown. So tonight, Burlett now has hit Drew Lewis, and Burlett now has hit Isaac Mapson. Isaac Mapson shakes hands with number 3 on the play after that. That is Virgil Powell, a junior. And the Panthers are up 29-0 with under 2 minutes on the clock. Paul Spohr on to kick an extra point yet again.
It's the right read from Noah. He's got the matchup he wanted, Mapson against the shorter cornerback, and just throw it up and let him go get it at its highest point, and he did that. He's got great hands.
Coach, what a weapon. I know Mapson is listed as a wide receiver, but he does remind me of dynamic tight ends.
Yeah.
Whether that is a Jimmy Graham or whoever you might say, the modern-day tight end. It's got to feel really good that the offensive line is doing their job, because all I know is Noah Burlett can't make that play unless that offensive line does their work.
Yeah, no, that's correct. He had time to throw. He had time to find Mapson. The offensive line seems to be in unison this week, and it's nice to see. Some may say that Mapson looks like Michael Mayer from Notre Dame.
Michael Mayer, number 87.
Yes.
I kind of think he looks like Cole Kmet, number 85 for the Chicago Bears. We'll just keep on going
just throw
down
Notre Dame guys in there. Kyle Rudolph, Tyler Eifert.
Our potato is definitely hot.
Yeah.
That's a nice pun or play on words. Mrs. Dayoff, if you would help me, I really don't know what that is, but I'm sure somebody will let me know. But we have another texter that just came in on our listener line. This is from Mr. Todd Yoder. He tells me that there is a double-baked potato. Have you ever had a double-baked potato?
Like a twice-baked potato?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, double and
Didn't think
twice
about
baked.
that one,
That's
though.
the same thing. It's just a different word, different verbiage. Charles fancies himself a basketball player in the winter, a baseball player. He's a junior high kid in the fall. And I do think that my beautiful wife, Mandy, would tell you he is a fine chef as well. He's shaking his head that he knows what a double-baked potato is. It's not too many houses that you get to go home and on a Sunday when you decide to grill out that your child will say, "Dad, I'll grill." That might be a fire safety hazard in some houses. It's strongly encouraged in the Schermerhorn house.
So if you notice that Washington
Coach wants nothing to do with me talking about my child grilling.
No.
Starting fires in the backyard, unattended with no supervision.
There's nothing wrong with that.
All right, let's continue.
All right.
I'm sure Levi does that on his grill.
Every time. Every time. If you notice, the Panthers kicked off from, I think it was the 50 That was because the personal foul penalty was tacked onto the kickoff, and I like this strategy. You kick it up higher, see if your kickoff team can get there, and if not, it's just a fair caught, and that's what happened.
That ball is snapped now. Beaneman hands off to number 40. That's Merrick McNeese, and he is brought down behind the line. Washington is dominating both lines. Washington is dominating the scoreboard right now, and the Panther defense is not done as Todd Stevens calls a timeout with 1 minute and 37 seconds. Limestone is very deep in their own territory.
Yep, and they've with Washington having all 3 timeouts left, it's a good move. I mean, make Limestone throw the ball, and if they throw the ball, the clock stops if it's incomplete. If they run the ball, you call your timeouts, you still got good field position. You got a chance to score.
I'm always looking for comparisons. I love the fact that when we go to a football practice, sports carry over. That's why multi-sport athletes are so important to high schools, because a kid that can play football and then a kid that can go play basketball or wrestle and then a kid that can go run track or play baseball, those kids hear a lot of the same verbiage, the same leadership skills. But this is, to me, Coach, what I'm seeing out here too. Offensive line, defensive line, it's a lot like what we say on a basketball court. We need to own the lane.
Yep.
If you own the paint and you own the lane in basketball, most likely you are going to win a lot of basketball games. We're seeing that tonight.
Yeah, if you can own the line of scrimmage, your chances of winning the game increase, by tons. I think it's not the right word, but they increase. That doesn't mean you're going to win the game, but that means your chances get better, and you got to control the line of scrimmage both offensively and defensively.
We so want to talk about playmakers, and playmakers deserve all of the recognition they get, but somebody has to do that dirty work for them. What a great break by Drew Lewis there, as they attempted to go to Sam Morse again. Coach Driscoll knew that Drew Lewis was going to be matched up against Sam Morse. Drew Lewis is physical. He is fast. He's got a 38-inch vertical. He's being currently recruited by Division I basketball programs. You can really see the athleticism and the high IQ that he brings out here on a football field.
Absolutely. The good part about this, too, is Washington does not have to burn a timeout here. Incomplete pass, clock stops. You've got Limestone in a 3rd and 14. This is prime time to get a stop and potentially get another score.
That's great insight, Coach Bauer. It is 3rd and 14, a minute 32 on the clock. The play clock is down, and they got the play off just in time.
Yep.
And the running back, that is McNeese, is brought down. Washington's whole coaching staff wanted a timeout there. They will take it. This is 4th and very long, pinned in yet again. Last week you predicted it. I recall in the spring you predicted it. Coach Stevens has tendencies just like any other player or coach. Coach, go ahead and predict it. What are we going to see?
This could be the time when you have, your pump block in there. This would be a great opportunity with the kicker deep in his end zone to bring that punt block. And even if the kick is short, you're still going to have great field position when the ball's down.
Todd Stevens, a 25-year veteran here on the coaching staff. He was a standout at Princeton, took his team to a 3A state championship. Coach Stevens married to Principal Mrs. Stevens. He loves to dial up pressure. Well, we got to see so many different things at the practices that we were able to attend. His ability to go through an entire offensive plan by the opposition without a piece of paper, without any technology whatsoever, and tell you exactly what their formation is, what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. The hours they must spend watching football is probably going to blow my mind if I ever tried to figure that out.
It was incredible how he could go through that with no scouting report on his hands. All right, here we go.
This is the kickoff, the punt for Limestone. Let's see what it is. There is no pressure as this is a return was set up. Lemus with a clean catch. Lewis is out in front of him. A nice block. Lemus is still on his feet. And that is a touchdown for the Panthers. Number 25 on the field. We do not have him on the roster, but that was an incredible block in front of Jack Lemus. And there is that dynamic punt return game that we never get to see, and we finally get to see it here. It is 36-0, Washington. a fine return on the play, an absolutely brilliantly blocked in front of him. There were multiple guys that stepped up and did the job. That is fun to watch. Kickoff returns, punt returns, that is all fun to watch.
That is a unit working together to get Lemus into the end zone.
And Spore is, he's money. You just know he's going to be there. I should say he's a debit card because you just know he's there no matter what. 37-0, 1 minute and 14 seconds. For those of you that are watching at Keps and you are watching right now at Brickhouse, we hope you're enjoying the broadcast. For those of you back in Limestone, 37-0, 1 minute and 14 seconds left as the Rockets are back on the field.
Just how good was that time management from the coaching staff? You know, calling the timeouts when they needed them. And then, you know, you got the incomplete pass and you got another timeout on a third down stop. Just good time management from Coach Crouch and all the coaches, and then they got a nice punt return on the end.
Earlier in the game, it was mentioned that number 46 was not on our roster. Number 46 is a huge part of this Washington football team. Previously, number 39, number 46 is Tyler Casey. He is an absolute beast on that line, and we were talking earlier about that. 46 has been all over the field. Tyler Casey is doing his work and doing it well.
He is. Another great kick from Spore. It's hard. They've switched up numbers tonight.
They have switched up numbers. Coach will continue to figure out. We appreciate the text messages that are coming in, assisting us. It takes a lot of people to make these things happen, and in this press box right now, we are joined by a person that sacrifices a lot. At school all day, dealing with technology issues for 1,550 kids. Caleb Baumgarten is standing right behind us, and it takes so many things to make things happen. And going out and finding a camera, a tripod, a computer program that worked. This man is here tonight, and he is volunteering just to be a huge part of this. So special thank you to Caleb, and a special thank you to Holly Robach-Davis to make this all happen. There's a handoff, and that is up the middle, and he is met by multiple Panthers. Washington's defense is in lockdown mode.
They are. Again, it comes down to controlling the line of scrimmage. And that's what the Panthers are doing tonight.
Coach, it's Veterans Night and First Responders Night, September 11th, tomorrow, a day that is reminiscent for people that were alive for Pearl Harbor. You should make a remark here that our boys are wearing special jerseys tonight, the camouflage jerseys. I'd like to have these during the basketball season. Maybe we can look like the old Evansville Purple Aces. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but Jim Cruz used to coach them. They wore short-sleeve jerseys during the season when they joined the Missouri Valley. It was kind of their trademark, if you will.
Like Proviso East.
Yes, like Proviso East. Very good. We might need to sit down with Coach Crouch and talk a little bit. I would be up for wearing a little camo there on a TOC game.
Yep. I bet the boys would love it, too.
If you're listening to this broadcast, we are ending here. I just brought up the Kevin Brown Memorial Tournament of Champions, which is going to be the week of Thanksgiving, Tuesday through Saturday. Sports fans, you've got to find a way to come to Torrey Gym. There are some phenomenal players coming to Torrey Gym, future NBA players, Division I players that are easily in the double digits, and your hometown Panthers are going to be taking on state-ranked #1 in the state, Yorkville Christian, with a young man coach that made 16 threes in a game, Jaden Shute, who just committed to Duke. That is going to be fun basketball.
It's going to be fun.
Come November in the Kevin Brown Memorial Tournament of Champions. We shift from football mode to the moment that many in the stands just enjoy it with everything you can. It is the beautiful sounds of the marching Panthers. Caleb is going to turn up the mic now for this moment. We are going to go silent. Enjoy the over 200 marching Panthers that will be performing September 11th. That's tomorrow at 8:48 p.m. right here on Babcock Stadium Field. If you're interested, come out tomorrow. It's the largest fundraiser for the Marching Panthers. Enjoy the color guard and the band. The Marching Panthers coming to you live.
Here at Babcock Field. 24 Illinois High School. school bands will be performing. The contest begins at 1:15 p.m. with the final band performing at 8:45 in the evening. Bands from as far north as Rockford and as south as Champaign will be here tomorrow. Next Saturday, the Marching Panthers will compete in Pontiac. They will be performing at 7:30 that evening. The Drumline will be participating this Sunday at the 9/11 Memorial Ceremony. This season, the Marching Panthers will be competing in competitions in Pontiac, Dunlap, Metamora, and the University of Illinois. Drum majors for this season are Emma Jarnigan, Julia Funk, and Baz Lehman. The Marching Panthers are working on their 2021 competition show, Arabian Nights. Here are your Marching Panthers. How about another hand for the Marching Panthers? Featured performers for this year's show.
Welcome back to the broadcast. That was the Marching Panthers performing Arabian Nights Aladdin. That band is going to be on display tomorrow, 8:48 p.m. right here at Babcock Field. That is a spectacular performance, and the sound quality. You gotta love Jim Tallman and Lisa Parrott's selection of music. They select music that the crowd loves, that the crowd knows. If you have children, get them out and get them here. 8:48 p.m. tomorrow for the largest fundraiser for the Marching Panthers. They'll be joined by 20 some odd other bands in a competition of the Marching Panther Classic in its 33rd year of existence. I'm joined by Blake Bauer. Blake brings so much to a broadcast. After every single broadcast, I feel like I walk out of here and know a lot more about football, so hopefully you'll be enjoying this as well. I'm also joined by the best cameraman there is in this press box, maybe the best cameraman in the city of Washington. That's Charlie Schermerhorn, working his magic. He brought you that beautiful band and was panning it back and forth. Here are some updates before we talk about the first half. At the end of the third quarter in East Peoria, Metamora 49, East Peoria 6. In the start of the second quarter, our last update, Morton 7, Canton the Little Giants 6. Our last update from Pekin and Dunlap are tied 7-7, and two very, very quality football teams that I am looking forward to watching them play against this Panther squad. And in a stunner right now, third quarter, Peoria High 28, Danville 28. What a game that is right now at Peoria High. We thank you for joining us from Babcock Stadium. Coach Bauer, take a second, run down the first half.
Sure.
If you would go over the score of how we got to where we're at.
So right now the Panthers lead at 37-0 going into the third quarter. And really, it's been a dominant performance by the Panthers, starting with that offensive and defensive line. Limestone has had 4 3-and-outs, a turnover, which is a fumble, and then they had a safety and a punt. So those 7 possessions for Limestone, I mean, it hasn't been great. But, there's time in the second half to correct a little bit of it. And then for the Panthers, the first possession, they got a first down and they had to punt, and then the next 3 possessions were touchdowns. And then a punt, and then 2 touchdowns. So their possessions and they've been a little more efficient and more productive on that offensive side of the ball. So second half, let's see if they can keep it up.
Last week against Kankakee, it was a Washington football team that showed fatigue. We're not going to hide from that. By the fourth quarter, Washington looked plumb exhausted out there on the field.
Yep.
This is how Coach Crouch builds his football team. Possess the ball, run the ball, sprinkle in some playmaking passes, allow Noah Burlett to have a little autonomy and freedom. He stepped up in the pocket multiple times, made some improvised plays. Thomas Borges has touched the ball. Cade Bescheid has had that football. Jack Lemus has returned for a week 3 resurgence. And all of that adds up to, Coach, I believe, a defense that looks very sound. This
Absolutely.
Washington football team, if you get arrested defense, this defense can flat out play.
They can. They can fly the ball. They can pursue. They make plays. Second half, though, I think it's kind of a tale of two sides here. If you're Washington, you want to keep your foot on the gas pedal. You don't want them to come out and score 3 or 4 touchdowns, and maybe you score 2 or 3. But you don't want them to score 2 or 3. And then Limestone, you're in a big hole, 37-0. But how do your kids bounce back from a first half that wasn't great? Do they bounce back? Do they perform? And do they finish the game strong?
Coach, every young man is important on a roster, whether that's a football roster 1 through 70 or a basketball team 1 through 15 for us. We talk about in a scenario like this, which as a coach, you dream of these scenarios. You get to play multiple players. You get to put multiple guys out there on the field. Development means everything. So Coach Crouch, Coach Stevens, Coach Malinowski, Coach Wisher, you name them all out there. They are now looking at whether it's a senior that is going to have a role maybe 8 weeks down the road, or a junior that is going to be an important component this year and definitely next year, or a young sophomore like a Jace Harlan, or maybe it's a young man named Klein that's going to get an opportunity. Every second's going to matter. I don't care if you're out there for 1 minute or 12 minutes. Go make an impact.
This is a great time for some of these younger guys to get more reps and more meaningful reps. You know, practice reps are one thing, but game reps are another. These are meaningful reps if those young guys can get those.
We've had numerous basketball players that, whether it was a 15-point victory or a 30-point victory, that last 1 minute, 2 minutes of a game is what that coach is going to remember. Go do something on special teams in that final minute or 2 minutes, and suddenly you're on the first team special teams in week number 4.
Find a way to stand out, right?
Limestone will kick off. Thank you for joining the broadcast tonight. It is 37-0 here at Babcock Stadium. We are joined in the press box now by Athletic Director at Washington, Herb Noblock. He makes all this happen. His right-hand man, Caleb, is right by his side. And we are ready to go. We just enjoyed what might be one of the best bands in the state of Illinois. I don't know if they rank them or not, but I know our wall in Torrey Gym is full of musical championships and second-place finishes. If you are listening to that and watching that, you can see why our wall is full of music accolades. Jim Tallman, Lisa Parrott, and the 224-member Marching Panthers, special kudos and applause to you. The Limestone Rockets, let's see how they respond to Coach Driscoll. Let's see how they respond to Coach Peacock. Coach, I know before the game we went over there, you played for 2 Limestone coaches.
I did.
Talk briefly about that if you would.
So I played for Coach Eckel, who was their defensive line coach, and I played for Coach Southey, who does their DBs. And they were 2 of my favorite coaches of all time. Coach Eckel came in, I think, when I was a sophomore, and Coach Southey was there for my freshman year on, and they taught me a lot about the game, and they taught me a lot about really how to work hard.
Coach, I had a brief stay at Dunlap in 2004 or 2005. I was there. Were those 2 men at Dunlap during that time period?
Coach, yes, I believe so. Coach Eckel teaches business, and Coach Southey was not a teacher at the school, but he was coach.
Panther defense is back on the field. Panther offense is back on the field. I'll ask Charlie to really pay attention here. If there's substitutions, if you would just let us know. The Panthers are back in that very powerful formation that is Lewis in motion. That's a handoff to Lewis, and Lewis is going to be brought down after a gain of 3. Coach Crouch's footprint on a game is power. He was an offensive lineman at ISU, a 4-year starter, first-year defensive lineman, 3 years offensive lineman. The man coached at the collegiate ranks. Yep. If you're a football guy, football guys love to get off the bus running. I think Coach Crouch is coming out of the Pantherplex right now and say, we're going to pound it in between the tackles.
I think you're going to see a lot of running in between the tackles for the next 24 minutes.
Coach Malinowski and Coach Wisher are just sitting down there smiling and going to have some mashed potatoes tonight at Brick House after this game. Here goes Lewis in motion. That's a handoff to Bescheid. Bescheid breaks away. That's about a 10-yard, 15-yard, 20-yard gain. And I saw Cade straight arm air there. I would have fallen down myself, though, trying to do that. Cade Bescheid with a first down run. It's good to see the Tomahawk missile doing some good stuff out there on the field.
Offensively, defensively, he's doing it all tonight. Nice game from Cade Bescheid.
Trying to give Cade a nickname. We'll see if that baby sticks. Maybe I'll go with cruise missile, Tomahawk missile, whatever you want. Coach, do you know any other forms of missiles? Earlier, you really let me down with your potato references. Give me another missile if you could here, sir. 1991 Iraq War, Coach. Scud missile.
That rings a bell. I was only 5 years old, though.
So when some of our boys shoot, there's a touchdown over the middle. Touchdown for Brock Pollitt. Last year, we were able to broadcast Brock Pollitt's 3-touchdown game. I believe one of those actually was captured by the camera. Hopefully Charlie Schermerhorn, who looks like he's running on about 2 hours sleep, got that baby in, as that's a BP touchdown over the middle, and it's Washington 43 and Limestone 0, 11 minutes left in the third quarter. Coach, what was the route there? What did you see?
BP just ran a vertical from the slot, and he was wide open. That's
BP spent a lot of time out. There's a fake. That's a touchdown. Sorry, a 2-point conversion. That is Isaac Mapson. And a nice throw by former AP U.S. History student, first row, 4th seat, Tyler Richardson, with a nice little pass there.
Good pass from Richardson. I don't know if that was a called fake or if that was a high snap. I missed the initial part of the play. I don't know if that was a high snap or was it called.
I think that might be a call, but I have absolutely no idea. But think about a basketball. If we're going to run in a big lead, we might show something that we typically would never do in a tight game. Maybe Coach Crouch is giving Week 4 opponent right now something to think about. And, of course, Week 4 opponent is Powerhouse Dunlap.
Yep. The more they have to prepare for, the harder it is.
Who's Chet Bauer going to choose Dunlap and Washington Week 4 matchup?
I think he's going to choose Washington.
But he lives in Dunlap,
he does.
Correct?
That is true, yes.
He's loyal to his son.
He is.
So this is a 45-0 lead. For those of you watching at home, we would definitely appreciate you on the live feed if you would put some comments for us, letting everybody know the score. We have heard that Keps in Brickhouse is showing this live as we speak. So please, if you would put that on the live feed, it is 45-0. Mrs. Sherry Lucas, I don't know about Mr. Bauer, but I'll be joining Mr. Brewer, Mr. Bruner, Mr. Reed, and Mr. Adams and Mr. Freeberg at your fine establishment as soon as this game is over.
Right.
I'm looking forward to some pulled pork nachos, Mrs. Lucas. So it is 10 minutes and 54 seconds on the clock, 45-0. And yet again on the field to kick off, this is a new place kicker, a new man, number 17 now is going to do the work. This is Mitchell Coughlin. Mitchell Coughlin, coach, sits in my class. He's last row, 4th seat. Coughlin's kick. He is a dual sport athlete. That was very rare in the high school that I came from.
Yes.
Mitchell is a star on the soccer field, playing for Coach Chad Cliff, first-year coach, Bradley Hall of Famer. Mitchell's joined by an all-star cast on that soccer field. Coach Cliff's got himself a squad.
Yeah, I've heard good things. I heard they're having a good year. I've not actually had a chance to come to a soccer game, but I need to get out here sooner rather than later.
Coach Eddie Pappas is something to watch. His father is a Bradley strength and conditioning coach. Eddie's probably been lifting since he was 6 months old. He can fly out there on that field, and they are full of guys. I believe Grant Woods is a midfielder on that team and does some great work too. There's a handoff, and that is Coach Driscoll's son. That's Frank Driscoll, and the ball was coughed
I don't know
up.
if he was down or not. He might be down.
There are about 11. There's 11 striped jerseys out there on the field. I saw every single Washington football player pointing.
Every guy.
Are they pointing to Kona Ice over there? What were they pointing at?
I don't see Is Kona Ice still here?
Coach, I got you to
I think
look.
they're gone.
That was a grade school game we used to play.
With that recovery,
Kona Ice back in the day.
ball be spotted at the 21-yard line.
If you're wondering why I just paused, I was joined in the booth by a former friend of mine that just happened to get in. We didn't lock the door, and I don't know how we didn't lock this door because people like this shouldn't be allowed in the press box. Mr. Angolia, how's Mia doing these days?
She's doing great. She's living up there in San Francisco.
That's awesome. So it's not every day you get to reunite with somebody that you haven't seen in a couple decades, but that literally just happened right here. He came out from San Diego, the beautiful state of California. If you would tell Mia hi for me. We're back to the broadcast. Sorry about that at home. I will admit to you, I was caught a little bit off guard by that, and we were on a live microphone. So there is a timeout on the field, 9 minutes on the clock, 45-0. Coach, I'm excited for the Panthers because I'm looking out on the field and I'm seeing some new numbers, some new jerseys. So I'm going to ask you to help me out a little bit here, and let's start introducing some of these guys to the broadcast.
And as they're in the huddle, it's hard to see exactly who is on the field, but we'll get a better idea as soon as they break that huddle. I think you're going to continue to see a heavy dose of runs here from Coach Crouch, being up 45-0 in the third quarter. Between the tackles probably for the rest of the night.
We're watching right now, too, and as we had a break in action, Mo Minahan, who is no longer Mo Minahan, her and freshman football coach got married this summer in early July, Kale Daum. The cheerleaders have done a great job this entire season. Mo does just a spectacular job. And I do need to mention that Kale took Mo on a hike for the honeymoon. They went out west. They went into some state forest parks. They climbed cliffs. Coach, I don't know if my bride is listening at home. Perhaps the greatest mistake of my life, my existence, is I took Miss Mandy Schermerhorn to Yellowstone National Park for our honeymoon. She cried in the lobby as she found out there was no air conditioning. It was July, it was 100 degrees, and we were greeted by buffalo, for goodness sake. She cried for 7 straight days. Somehow I was still married at the end of that day. There is a great run by number 7 on the field. That is a great run. That is Kanan McQuarrie on the run. The handoff on the play. We do have a new quarterback in. Coach, tell him a little bit about the new QB taking center.
The new quarterback is Jake Stewart. He is a junior. He's a leader for us on the basketball
Coach, I was wondering
floor.
why you were pausing there for a second. You act as if you don't even know Jake Stewart.
I do. Jake is a leader. He's a great kid, and he is probably one of the hardest working kids I have ever been around.
Jake is up to 12,007 makes from the 3-point line. He is a dual sport athlete. He is a 3-sport athlete. Jake is a football player, a backup quarterback. He is a competitor on that basketball floor. He is a bona fide leader. He comes in the morning and shoots nonstop. He comes in late at night and shoots nonstop. In 3 months to make 12,000 3-pointers, Jake is going to be a force on that basketball court, and he is joined by some incredible teammates on the floor for us. We could go on and on about our boys. But the thing about Jake Stewart that I love the most, competitor. You know, leadership, competitiveness, that is all part of the thing. So he is now taking the snap here. It is 6 minutes and 56 seconds. It is 2nd down and 5. Stewart under center. Stewart hands off to the fullback. That ball is on the ground.
They're going to rule him down.
35, McCarron, the carry again for the Panthers. Ball came loose, but the runner was...
McCarron on the run. He came up just short at the 1.
3rd and goal, Washington.
Luke Wise is checked into the game. We do apologize. These jersey numbers are not the same jersey numbers that we have on our roster. Washington is wearing a jersey tonight that is special for Veterans Night. We will continue to do our best to listen to Coach Parrott as he will give us everything he's got to give us the right numbers and the right kids playing for Washington. Stewart under center. This is double tight ends. Stewart hands off. It's a fullback dive, and that ball is on the ground again. And that ball is recovered by Limestone. Well, Washington is going to come up without points. It was 3rd down and goal from the 1. That would have taken the score to 51-0. The first mistake, the first turnover today for Washington. You're deep in the 3rd quarter with a running clock, and that's your first turnover. You're doing pretty darn good.
You are, but those are things from guys who aren't getting a lot of time that you want to see stay clean. You know, you don't want to have those fumbled snaps. You don't want to have those fumbled handoffs. Those are things that you want to keep nice and crisp just in case something would happen where you got to bring those guys in later in the game. That really is – this game's out of hand now at 45-0, but in a closer game, if they have to come in, you want them to be crisp.
Let's watch the learning curve now of Limestone, and there is a nice pass. That's a nice reception on the play as Bieneman continues to compete. Limestone's offensive line continues to compete. That was Sam Morse on the catch. He's been the intended target multiple times tonight, and Morse comes up with the catch.
And if you're Limestone here, you can't be conservative. I mean, you're down 45-0. You know, give your quarterback a chance to make some plays, let him throw it around a little bit, see if you can get a touchdown here.
Drew Lewis now coming out of the game. He is being replaced as a DB. That is number 8 on the field. That's Jack Lemus, who got a lot of time last year as a defensive back. Lemus has had himself a nice night as a running back. Bieneman with the handoff. That is Driscoll, who is ripped and pulled to the ground. The Washington scouting report had number 88 everywhere on it. His name was on every single conceivable page of that scouting report. for good measure and for good reason.
And I think that's all I heard from the coaches all week is, can we stop 88? Can we stop 88?
Evan Grazier is now coming out. That was number 19 that you just saw running off the field. Grazier is a 6 foot, 155-pound senior that has had himself a very consistent evening. Washington looking for the stop on 3rd down and 8. Bieneman on the rollout, and a nice pass and a better catch, as that is
Nice
Frank
throw.
Driscoll, once again, number 88. He needed to buy stock tonight, and how many times his name's going to be mentioned on this broadcast.
Nice throw, rolling to his left, his offside, and he had a lot of Panthers in pursuit. He could feel the pressure coming. Nice job flipping his hips and getting that ball out of there.
You can see why Driscoll's being recruited right now at the NAIA and Division II level, and some really standout Division III schools are on him. He's a fine player. I love the way that they described him in the Washington Scout as a Swiss Army knife. It just makes so much sense. Versatile player, great leader, and this young Limestone team at 2 minutes and 55 seconds is still competing, as that is Driscoll running off the right tackle. And Driscoll is going to pick up a 1st down, and that will move the chains. And Limestone, there is no such thing. I would imagine the Limestone coaches would never want to hear this ever uttered, a moral victory. But there is something to be said about a learning curve in a game, and we're seeing a learning curve.
Absolutely. And that's it. Can they continue to play? How's the resiliency of this team? You know, it's always tough coming into a halftime down 37-0. Now you're down 45-0. Do they keep playing? Can they keep getting 1st downs and put some points on the board?
We talked earlier in the telecast that the record coming into this game was Washington was 35-16 lifetime against Limestone. The series started in 1953, which was the inaugural year of Limestone High School. At this moment, safe to say that Darryl Crouch is going to go to a staggering 16-1 against the Limestone Rockets. This Washington football team has responded and responded well. This is looking very encouraging. We're deep in the 3rd quarter. Maybe time to talk a little bit about what are they going to work on now? Do you show anything? Do you just go through your base packages? Or do you start to bring out a little something for Dunlap to think about in week number 4?
I think at this point
that ball is thrown deep and just overshot the intended receiver. Bieneman showing off his arm. That was an excellent, excellent throw as he aired that ball out. That was Harper was the intended receiver. That's a sophomore that just showed that he does have the arsenal and the know-how to throw that ball deep.
Yep.
The Panthers looking for a stop. It's 3rd down and 3. Lined up now as a DB, that is Easton Harris now on the field. Easton Harris is also a standout baseball player, nationally ranked baseball player, committed to Parkland. He was part of that Final Four baseball team. Throws the ball about 90 miles per hour. He can hit virtually anything you throw up there. We watched practice. Easton was getting reps with the offense, too, as a quarterback. He's an athlete. We continue to talk about this. We just talk nonstop. Multi-sport athletes find multiple ways to get onto playing fields and courts. Easton Harris, first-year football player, now lined up on the defensive side of the ball.
And you're going to see him at defensive back, and I think you're going to see him at quarterback at some point in the 4th quarter.
He did practice a couple nice little package plays that were put in specifically for the athletic QB. Hopefully we do get a look at that. And there he is. It's as if he had the broadcast on. Easton Harris, he gets himself a pull down at Frank Driscoll, and a little bit of excitement. Do you think he does that at second base after he throws out a guy at first?
And it's fun to see his teammates get excited on the sideline as well.
Mo Minahan, or Mo Dom, sorry, her cheerleaders are now starting to throw things up into the crowd. Let's see if they can get one up in the press box. I'm a loyal White Sox fan. Anytime a foul ball is anywhere near the press box, Jason Benetti. Oh, there is one off the press box window.
I thought we were going to have one.
I thought Coach Bauer had himself a chance. The people in front of us, all of them ducked. It was almost like a serious surface-to-air missile, Coach, was coming at us. That's the 5th reference to a missile on this broadcast. We do have an update from Adam Duvall. I've been off social media since March of 2020. Does this count that I'm looking at your phone right now on this Twitter feed?
No.
And the streak
It does
continues.
not count.
Update from Pekin. Pekin has broken out and is now ahead 20-7 with 5 minutes and 38 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Kanye Tyler is up to a 160-yard night on 22 carries. He just broke one off for a 42-yard TD run. We're going to be looking forward to seeing him. He had a short stay in Washington, suffered a shoulder injury on a sideline hit. We didn't get to see Kanye Tyler, and I hope that young man stays healthy so we can watch him. There's a nice pass and catch. Bieneman hits number 20 on the play, and a nice catch by Chase Harper. Harper is a sophomore. That's a sophomore-to-sophomore connection.
Yeah, that's going
that maybe next year when we go to Limestone, we'll be seeing this.
I think you'll see that next year and the year after. So the next 2 years, those two guys are just going to keep getting better and better.
The Panthers are fighting this year for their 61st winning season, which is an amazing, amazing accomplishment. And the fact that Coach Crouch has been above 500 year in and year out, he has brought such stability to Washington Panther football. But Coach Crouch would probably be one of the first ones to tell you as there is a run up the middle, lowers his shoulder, and a nice run by the Limestone Rockets. That is number 24, Izzy Nunez, another sophomore. So Coach Driscoll right now is going young, and they are performing out there. Sophomore quarterback, sophomore wide receiver, sophomore running back.
Yep. That's an important drive for the Limestone Rockets. Important. When you've got those three sophomores in there, great experience, and they're putting together a nice drive here to finish off this game.
So this is a second down and three, and there is a flag on the play, a false start. I was alluding to the fact earlier about Coach Crouch's success. He would be the first one to tell you that the success at the high school level starts at the younger levels.
Correct.
Junior Football League, JFL. Coach Thornton, who is on the sidelines. Coach Thornton is a JFL coach. I know Dr. Freeman, superintendent of schools, is involved in the JFL program. It doesn't happen by accident that Washington sidelines are full. Their players are well-versed. And when you have high school coaches coaching at the Junior Football League level, that's pretty impressive stuff going on. That ball is incomplete. A overshot Sam Morse. That was number 18, Easton Harris. Just minutes ago, Coach, we talked about making an impact. Easton Harris is showing that he could contribute to the defensive side.
He's coming in the game, and he's made some nice couple plays on defense. And now I'm interested to see if he is going to get some time at quarterback.
3rd down and 8. It is a running clock in the second half, 45-0. Thank you for joining the broadcast tonight at Babcock Field. This has been a fun one. Washington has dominated from the start. Limestone was 3 and out. Washington then went 3 and out. And then from there on out, it was all Panthers as they have scored on drive after drive. And now their defense is on, and some good playing time for some Panthers that have contributed on the field. They've been at every practice. They made it through a COVID year, and now they're being rewarded here Friday night.
Nice ball from quarterback there, Bieneman. That's a rolling to his left, good ball. You see Jake Stewart check in the game defensively now. So they've got Easton Harris, who's listed as a quarterback, and you've got Jake Stewart listed as a quarterback. Both guys playing defense, showing a little versatility.
We're trying our best right now with many of these numbers out here. There is a number 30 on the football field, but sadly on this roster, he is not listed. We will continue to do our best to figure out who some of these young Panthers are. There is a nice run again by number 24. That is Izzy Nunez. This Limestone football team, sophomores playing against varsity caliber players, and they are varsity caliber players. This is something that Coach Driscoll, Coach Peacock, and the rest of the coaching staff can build on.
They've got to be pleased with the effort they're seeing from these guys.
As Washington continues now to build the program, we had talked about the JFL. We had talked a little bit about the proud tradition and 60 wins and how many times Coach Crouch has been to the playoffs. if you have the opportunity, it would be an absolute great moment. Deep here in September 24th is homecoming here at Washington. A homecoming parade is something that, if you've ever been a part of Washington's homecoming parade, we've lost that 2 years in a row.
Yep.
Canceled due to weather, canceled due to COVID. I am so excited on the 24th to be able to see that parade, Coach.
I am too, because this will be my first one.
You haven't seen one yet.
Yep.
What are Isaac and Levi's favorite part of the parade?
I don't know.
Well, I know they haven't been to one, but Coach, surely you've taken your kids to a parade before.
The candy for sure.
The amount of candy that is thrown at this parade. There's over 110 floats and people walking in the parade. The amount of candy and sugar that is about ready to be distributed on September 24th to the youth of Washington is almost criminal. So it's going to be bagfuls. You better get a hefty bag for Levi and Isaac so they can just go get themselves a treasure trove.
From what I understand, though, they will be in the parade because they both do flag football. So they'll be in it.
I'll be looking forward to watching those little guys. You might want to ice down Levi's little tiny legs after that. That's about a mile and a half trek.
It's a long walk for him. Long walk.
Let's hope he's tough like his mom and is able to make the whole walk. I don't think Coach Bauer could quite make that. Of course, I kid. Coach Bauer might be the most in shape human being in Washington Community High School. He's traditionally, he can outwork our boys, but hopefully our boys here in a few months are going to be strong enough and their cardio is going to be enough that you don't make them look like fools in that weight room. This is now under center here. Number 16, Caleb Bieneman, still in the game. It's two tight ends out of the pro set, I formation.
Fourth down.
There is Izzy Nunez, and he did pick up the first down as Limestone threatening the score.
It's a good drive for them.
There is a pride factor here.
Absolutely there is. You don't want to get shut out. That's a huge thing in a football game. You do not want to get shut out.
And I think there's a pride factor on the other side.
Oh,
you want to have a shutout.
Washington wants to get a shutout. Absolutely.
So this does mean something at 5 minutes and 20 seconds to both teams right now. And out wide is Harper. Nunez is still the running back of choice. That is Bieneman taking the snap. Bieneman looks left and right. He hands off. And there is Nunez. And Nunez is hit. And he continues to stay on his feet, showing some nice strength there as Mitch Coughlin.
Fumble in the end zone.
That was Mitch Coughlin in on the tackle. Place kicker and soccer player.
It was. Recovered by the Panthers.
And recovered by the Panthers.
Touchback.
Tough to overcome turnovers at any point of the game.
Nunez runs hard, though.
He does.
He really runs hard. That's impressive to see him run. That's definitely something to build on in the future. So he can't hang his head about that. I know you don't want to fumble, but he's run hard all game.
First down, Washington.
Washington will take over, and they will take over at their 20, up 45-0, with 4 minutes left on a running clock. I see the work of Will Freeman. There's a junior football leaguer if I've ever seen one. Will Freeman is a linebacker for the 14U JFLers, who are coming off some nice victories here early in their season. Jake Stewart continues to be the quarterback of choice, two guard in the basketball season, utility man on a baseball field, and right now, junior quarterback running the show. There's a handoff, staying on his feet. And that is number 26. That is Brayson Barth, a 5'8", 150-pound sophomore. Kind of a do-it-all guy. Quarterback at the sophomore level. Right now he's showing that he can do a couple different things. A running back, and earlier he lined up next to Brock Pollard as a wide receiver. That's the kind of guy I pick on my fantasy football team.
Yeah, can you put him at your running back? Can you put him at your wide receiver? Well, you can't put him at your running back, but can you put him at your flex spot? That's a huge one.
Coach, who was your number one draft choice this year?
I wish I could tell you. Oh, I took Najee Harris from the Steelers. I took a rookie.
You took a rookie. That is rolling the dice.
Well, I saw what Najee did to Notre Dame, unfortunately, in the Rose Bowl. And when he jumped over one of our defenders, I figured, well, might be worth it.
Now, I noticed something. You said one of our defenders.
Yeah,
so you play for Notre Dame?
I did not. No, but I take great pride in what they do with football.
I see that. So when you're watching at home, Do you say like my guys and I was out there and did you see what I just did?
No, but I definitely try to be the armchair quarterback or the armchair coach.
All right. I did watch that Notre Dame game. That was an enjoyable one. It was good to see those stands absolutely packed too. Who does Notre Dame have tomorrow?
Toledo.
Oh boy, that'll be about 75-0 game.
I
Sorry
hope
if you're a
so.
Toledo grad at home. And the Panthers now with the sweep on the left side of the field coming near our broadcast. He is still on his feet. He is down and
Good
pushed out
run.
of bounds. That is number 7. That is Cannon McQuarrie with a big-time run. Coach Malinowski talked about him. He was the long snapper, hand selected by Coach Malinowski. Loves his athleticism and his grit. We saw some potential right there. We're going to be seeing that young man in the future.
Absolutely, we are.
So McQuarrie with a first down scamper on a nice play by the Panthers. It's 1 minute and 38 seconds left on the clock. As the play is coming in, there is just a bevy of new players out there on the field. That is Jake Stewart out wide left, and that is Easton Harris now in out of the shotgun. This was practiced on Tuesday. And coach, I kid you not, that happened on Tuesday. So these are learning moments. I was standing next to Coach Wisher, and he was yelling nonstop about the fact that the play needed to be operated or executed much quicker. And remember, Easton has not played football. This is the first time, and now he's a first-year football player, and he is the nerve center of the team as a quarterback.
Yes.
That's a lot on a kid's plate.
It is, but I think he can. If anybody can handle it, he can. I mean, second baseman, pitcher. He's been in a lot of spots where there's pressure. He knows how to handle it.
Easton with the snap, and he hands it off. As that is McQuarrie again, who gets to about the 40-yard line. 30 seconds left on the clock. That should do it here from Babcock Stadium. With Washington now improving to 2-1, bouncing back after losing to number 6 in the state, Kankakee, who we believe lost their game this week because of COVID. The realities of 2021. 10 seconds left on the clock. It's trips to the right. Easton Harris is taking the snap, and Harris is going to throw with 3 seconds. Harris steps up. There is a flag on the play. Harris is still on his feet. Harris is accelerated past. There was a flag on the play as Harris scampers into the end zone, showing his athleticism on defense and showing his athleticism on offense. Coach, I don't want to be the guy that says certain things stand out, but earlier in the third quarter, right before we started this broadcast in the second half, we talked about taking every moment you can. Coach Crouch is noticing what we just saw right there.
He's trying to get some guys some more real game reps, and that touchdown's not going to count. It's going to get called back, but some real game reps is what they need, because you never know when you might need a guy to come in.
If that's a kid that's playing for us in the fourth quarter and he guards and he sprints the floor and he gets an offensive rebound, 2 offensive rebounds, and his guy doesn't score, there's a good opportunity for him to be on the court in the next game. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you joining the telecast tonight, the broadcast tonight. Hopefully the live stream was enjoyable for you at home. The Washington Panthers have taken a 1-0 record into the Mid-Illini. Next week is going to be a battle. They are traveling to Dunlap, a well-coached Coach Caslett team that I know Coach Crouch respects and knows he's going to get a battle. At the last time we checked, Dunlap was losing to Pekin, so they're going to be a hungry football team if that score stands. Coach, early thoughts about what we can look forward to as we watch our team go on the road.
Well, in the last, 3 or 4 years, those battles those games against Dunlap have been some battles. I mean, they have been you had 2, I think, in 1 year when they played close to the end of the year here, and then they played again in was it the semifinals?
It was, sir, yes.
And then I feel like every single time since then, it's been back and forth. It's been a tough go. Can they continue to run the ball the way they did tonight? That's going to be huge.
A special night at Washington. started off with honoring our veterans, honoring our first responders. Tomorrow is a moment in American history, the 20th anniversary of one of the most tragic days in U.S. history, world history. It was a beautiful and a very classy night done by the entire Washington Athletic Department, spearheaded by the football coaching staff. And a special mention as we close out this. I know every veteran was honored. I know the first responders were honored. But a special mention to Mr. Les Roth, who was honored at midfield, a family friend, a 90-some-odd years old, that sacrificed so much of his youth in World War II and in 1945 found himself on a volcanic island in the middle of the Pacific against the Empire of Japan at a place called Iwo Jima. Coach, we can lose sight and perspective in the world that we live in today. It was a 45-0 game, but we're in the midst of a pandemic. America's been through a lot. The sacrifices have been enormous, but just looking at a man like Les Roth, who is near a century old, makes me want to smile and sit here today and say that tomorrow's going to be a great day. Next year's going to be a great year, and 10 years down the road, we're just going to be great and whole.
Absolutely.
So, Coach, thanks for joining us. I'll see you September 12th at Lincoln Park for the 20th anniversary of September 11th. Ladies and gentlemen, we're signing off.